Welcome to English Speak Pulse, the podcast where we turn your English learning into real-life confidence. I'm Danielle, your speaking coach and fluency partner, and today we're tackling one of the biggest challenges every English learner faces: how to speak fluently in an interview.
And I'm Sarah, your guide to natural, confident English communication. I've helped hundreds of learners prepare for job interviews. And trust me, it's not about using fancy words or memorizing answers. It's about sounding relaxed, natural, and in control.
Exactly. Let's be honest, you could know hundreds of words, but the moment you sit in front of an interviewer, your mind goes blank. You start thinking, what if I make a mistake? Or, what if my English sounds bad?
Oh, that happens to everyone. You suddenly forget even simple words like experience or strengths. But here's the truth. Fluent English in interviews isn't about perfect grammar. It's about confident delivery.
And here's what's really interesting. Most people think fluency means speaking fast, but in interviews, the opposite is true. True fluency means being clear, calm, and professional, the kind of English that makes the interviewer trust you.
So, how do you make that happen? How do you sound confident even when you're nervous? How do you structure your answers so your English sounds natural and polished, not memorized?
That's exactly what we're going to explore today. From first impressions to pronunciation, from storytelling to handling tough questions, we'll give you everything you need to sound fluent and confident in any interview, anywhere.
And the best part, you don't need big words to sound professional. You just need the right rhythm, the right phrases, and the right mindset.
So here's the question. What if you could walk into your next interview and sound like someone who belongs there, not someone trying to prove they do?
Stay tuned, because by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to do that.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something, well, pretty stressful for a lot of professionals. Hitting that sweet spot of fluency and confidence in an English job interview. And look, we're not here to give you yet another grammar lecture. Nope, we want to find that shortcut, the way to sound convincing, natural, really capable, turn those nerves into actual professional poise.
That's exactly it. We dug into a whole stack of sources on high-stakes communication, and honestly, the core finding, it's pretty consistent and maybe a bit surprising. When you manage to remove those psychological blocks, your existing English skills, they often jump up, like maybe 30% almost instantly. So our mission today is really to pull out those actionable strategies, the ones that let you kind of skip the line to sounding confidently fluent.
Okay, here's that first big insight, the nonverbal one that sort of frames everything we're going to talk about, the English interview. It actually kicks off way before you say your first word. It starts the second you walk into the room, or even, when you click that link for the online call.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that the really high-performing candidates, they seem to get this instinctively. We spend so much time rehearsing what we'll say, but we forget that first impression is almost purely energetic. Your expression, the way you hold yourself, even your breathing, that initial silent handshake communicates a ton about your composure.
Right. So if you can project that calm, confident energy from moment one, your English just automatically sounds better, smoother, more authentic.
Exactly. You've sort of pre-validated your competence before you've even opened your mouth.
Okay, so let's unpack that connection. Body and voice.
Yes.
Nervous posture. I mean, we all know it, right?
I know.
Hunched shoulders, maybe shaky hands, avoiding eye contact.
And it doesn't just look nervous. It directly translates into nervous vocal energy. Your body is basically telling your brain, alert, we might be in danger here.
And the brain's reaction to danger is often freeze, like mindset paralysis.
Precisely. If you go into that interview thinking, okay, I'm being tested, one mistake and I'm done, your body panics. Physiologically, blood flow changes, moves away from the cognitive bits, and your English just seizes up. It's not that you forgot, it's your body's stress response kicking in.
So how do we stop that? How do we interrupt that physical freeze?
Well, the key seems to be shifting the internal story, the narrative in your head. Instead of seeing it as an interrogation, you have to genuinely adopt the perspective of, okay, I'm just having a professional chat here about how my skills can help them. When you really internalize that view, your fluency has space to just flow more naturally.
And the physical part of that shift is posture, right? We hear sit straight all the time, but it's more than just looking proper.
Oh, definitely. It's not just appearances. Our sources point to this link between an upright but relaxed posture and the vagus nerve. That nerve plays a huge role in regulating your heart rate and, crucially, the muscles you use for speaking.
Ah, okay. So sitting slightly forward, maybe, shoulders relaxed, breathing deeply. You're literally telling your own nervous system, it's okay, we're safe.
Exactly. And that stability directly impacts the clarity, the depth, the control in your voice. Your articulation gets better because you're not trying to talk while walking a tightrope, essentially.
So is there a practical way to practice this, to build that foundation?
Yes. There's a simple exercise we pulled. Let's call it the Fluency Foundation exercise. Before the interview, just stand in front of a mirror, watch yourself, and say one simple phrase. Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
Okay.
But first, take one full deep breath. Then say the phrase. Now watch and adjust. Your posture, any tension in your jaw, the tone. Does it sound calm? Strong. Notice if your shoulders creep up when you start talking. The idea is once your body looks confident and calm, your brain starts to believe it, and your English tends to follow suit. That's step one. Get the energy right before the words.
Okay, that makes sense. Establish the physical calm first. So once we've, nailed that silent handshake and got our posture sorted, what about the first actual words? The greeting. I've noticed a lot of English learners really tie themselves in knots over this.
Oh, absolutely. They worry endlessly. Is it sir? Is it formal? Should I ask, how are you? Should I try some complex opening? The sources are really clear on this. Simplicity wins every single time. The goal of the greeting isn't fancy language. It's clarity and composure.
But wait a second. Wouldn't using really simple English maybe suggest you don't have a great vocabulary, especially if it's like a technical role? Shouldn't you try to impress right off the bat?
That's a really common question, a great challenge, and it highlights a key misconception, the very beginning of the interview. That's not the moment to showcase your entire vocabulary. It's the moment to showcase reliability. If you stumble over some complicated 5-word opening phrase, the interviewer immediately subconsciously loses a bit of faith. Faith in your ability to deliver a clear, complex answer later on.
I see. So those first few seconds are about building trust through just effortless delivery.
Precisely. You want short, confident statements. Things that are easy for you to say clearly and easy for them to understand instantly. Simple examples that just work. Good morning, it's great to meet you. Or maybe a bit more relaxed. Hi, thank you for having me today. Predictable, clear, professional. Done.
And the delivery is key, you're saying. Slowly. Don't rush it.
Definitely don't rush. Don't treat it like some verbal hurdle you have to clear as fast as possible. Pause. Breathe. And here's a useful mental trick. Imagine you're greeting a respected colleague, someone you know professionally, not a judge deciding your fate. That little mental shift. It changes the whole tone from kind of pleading to confident.
Makes sense.
Interviewers are, maybe unconsciously, looking for just 2 things in that greeting: clarity and composure. If you nail those 2, you've just set this powerful, confident rhythm for the whole rest of the conversation.
Okay, great. So the greeting's done. Now, let's turn to that first real speaking challenge, the inevitable. So tell me about yourself. This feels like the point where that initial calm can just evaporate.
Yeah.
And people start rushing, right? Trying to cram everything in.
Yeah, that's where we see the big contrast between what we might call panic speaking and professional fluency. Panic speaking is that breathless delivery, often getting faster as you go. We saw a great example in a practice transcript, candidate named Ali.
Right. He said something like, "My name is Ali. I'm 25 years old. I did my graduation in business administration, and I have 3 years of experience, and I want to work here because..."
All one sentence, basically.
Exactly. Grammatically, it's mostly okay, but structurally, it's chaos. That stream of sound just signals panic, even if the content is good. Real fluency isn't about speed. It's about rhythm. It's pacing your sentences, knowing where to breathe, where to pause.
So how would Ali's answer sound if it were paced well? Using simple words still. Okay, let's try it. Maybe something like, "My name is Ali. Pause, I recently graduated in business administration. Pause. For the past 3 years, I've been working in customer service. Pause, where I focus specifically on resolving complex client issues efficiently."
Yeah. Totally different feel. Each piece of information lands properly. It sounds measured, thoughtful, competent, even though the words are still pretty simple.
And that brings us to this really powerful, maybe counterintuitive point from the research. Interviewers remember your tone, your clarity, your control, way more than they remember tiny grammar mistakes.
Really? More than grammar.
Absolutely. There was this one fascinating case study of a software engineer. During a technical explanation, he clearly made a subject-verb agreement error. Used a plural verb, singular subject, clear mistake, he got the job. Afterwards, they asked the interviewer why that mistake didn't matter. And the interviewer said something like, "Honestly, I barely noticed it. He just sounded so sure of himself, and he was really easy to follow."
Wow, so the confidence in his delivery basically created a shield.
That's the core idea. If your tone is confident, if your pacing is controlled, they don't really register it as struggling with English. They register it as thoughtful or deliberate. You don't need to be fast. You don't need fancy words. You just need to sound certain.
Okay. And what if you do need a second to think during a tougher question?
Good point. Use professional hesitation markers. They're actually a sign of fluency, not weakness. Instead of just, use phrases like, that's an interesting question, or let me just take a moment on that one. It buys you a few seconds to gather your thoughts in English while projecting composure.
Right, using the pause strategically.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to preparing the actual content. Segment 4, internalizing your message, not memorizing scripts. Because if you memorize word for word and you forget just one word, boom, the whole thing can crash, right?
Exactly. Memorization makes you speak to yourself, trying to recall the lines. Internalization lets you speak to the interviewer, focusing on connecting. The goal isn't a rigid script, it's a flexible structure, like a skeleton that your natural English can then flesh out.
Okay, so for that, tell me about yourself question. You recommend just 3 simple bullet points.
Yeah, a very simple structure gives you boundaries but doesn't lock you in. Think, 1, who you are, your basic background. 2, what you've done, the key experience relevant here. And 3, why you're excited about this job, make the connection.
And how might that sound, using that structure, but keeping it natural?
Okay, so maybe something like, well, I'm a marketing graduate, and I've got about 2 years of internship experience, mostly focused on digital campaigns. Connective pause, I really enjoy working with creative teams, and I'm always trying to learn new ways to connect with audiences online. Bridge to the role. So I was really excited to see this opportunity, because the role seems like a perfect match for my skills and honestly where I want to grow next.
Yeah, that feels much more like a real conversation, less like a performance. It reminds me of that tennis analogy sometimes used in communication. You don't have to smash every single ball perfectly. You just need good rhythm, consistency, control, keep the ball in play.
Exactly. Fluency flows best when you feel comfortable and flexible, not rigid and stressed out about perfection.
Okay. And you mentioned an advanced tip, something about emotional anchors.
Yes. This ties right back to that mindset shift we talked about earlier. It's subtle, but it can be really potent. Emotional anchors.
Emotional anchors. How does that work in an interview setting? Sounds a bit abstract.
It's actually quite practical. Before you go into the interview room or join the call, take 30 seconds. Think about something you are genuinely proud of accomplishing. Maybe it was a project you nailed, or a really tough problem you figured out, or even just a strong compliment you got from a boss or mentor, something that gives you that feeling of real, earned pride or success. And just hold on to that feeling.
Okay. And what does holding that feeling do?
That feeling acts as an anchor for your physical state. So when you walk in, you're subconsciously carrying the subtle, positive physical energy of success and self-worth instead of the energy of fear or, I hope I don't mess up. Then when you start talking, that genuine feeling of pride naturally brings a certain clarity, a depth, and assurance to your voice. Almost regardless of the specific words you use, it's like a chemical confidence booster starting from the inside.
Huh. That's really interesting. It completely flips the script from managing fear to projecting competence right from the start.
Exactly. Okay, so let's quickly recap the main do's and don'ts we've pulled out for really maximizing your English interview performance. First, the do's.
Right. Do master that silent handshake. Focus on that upright, relaxed posture. Take that deep breath before you even think about speaking.
Do greet simply and naturally. Clarity, composure. Use something easy like, good morning, it's a pleasure to meet you. Keep it clean.
Do remember to breathe, and maybe even a small, genuine smile before you speak. That smile actually relaxes your face and jaw, which can make your pronunciation sound warmer, more natural.
Do answer in short, calm, distinct sentences. Think pacing, think rhythm. That's more important than speed.
And do internalize your key messages using those flexible bullet points. Don't try to memorize exact sentences.
Okay, and now for the quick don'ts.
Right. Don't overthink your grammar while you're talking. Focus on getting the core message across with confidence. Minor slips usually don't matter as much as you think.
Don't speak too fast. Speed almost always signals panic. Slow down. Take your time. Remember, the silence actually belongs to you. You can use it.
And don't forget that emotional anchor idea. Use it beforehand to set that baseline of pride and competence. It can make a real difference to your starting energy.
Absolutely. Because when you genuinely feel proud or competent, your voice just carries that energy and clarity. That's the real difference, isn't it? Between just sort of speaking English, like maybe a student reciting lines, and truly owning your English, like a confident professional communicating value.
Yeah, owning it. And when you own it, you control the dynamic.
Yeah.
You shift their focus away from just how good is their English towards how capable is this professional. That feels like the high-value shortcut we were looking for.
Exactly. So the big takeaway for you listening, remember, fluency really starts before the words even come out. Once you master that internal calmness, that confident posture, that sense of connection, that psychological and physical alignment first, then every single word you actually say just carries more weight, much more professional power. And that's how you land the job. Welcome back to the deep dive. So we've spent quite a bit of time covering how to walk into that interview room, you know, the confidence, body language, tone, all of that.
The first impression stuff.
Exactly. But, well, eventually you have to actually answer the questions, right?
Yeah, it's the moment of truth, isn't it?
It really is. So today we're digging deeper past those initial vibes into the real mechanics of it. How do you actually build answers in English that sound powerful, fluent, totally professional, even when you're under pressure?
Yeah, and that's critical because once the hellos are done, the real questions start. And that's where a lot of learners, even ones with good grammar, they start to stumble a bit.
Right. Yeah.
So our mission today, really drilling down to the sources you shared, is to unpack this core idea, interview fluency. It's not really about knowing tons of fancy vocabulary.
Okay.
It's almost entirely about structure. Seriously.
Structure. That's interesting. So the sources are saying structure is the key takeaway.
Absolutely. If your answers follow a clear, kind of predictable pattern, your thinking becomes visible. The interviewer sees you're organized.
And that organization comes across as confidence?
Exactly. Even with simple words, if they're organized well, you sound clear, confident, fluent.
Okay, so the big problem isn't necessarily the English words themselves.
Not usually, no. It's more that when a tricky question comes, there's no immediate framework. The brain just kind of scrambles to figure out what to say and in what order.
And that scramble looks like hesitation.
Right, or broken rhythm. Maybe the English feels a bit slow, uncertain. So the trick is getting that structure sorted first. Then the language can just flow more naturally, you know, from A to B.
Makes sense. Let's get into that structure then.
Okay, let's start with what the sources point to as a major stress point. Behavioral questions.
Yes. The tell me about a time when questions.
Exactly. Tell me about your experience with X, or describe a time you solved a problem. The big danger here, rambling, just going on and on.
Yeah, you lose the interviewer. They need a story, right?
Right.
But a concise one.
Precisely. Not your life story for the last 6 months.
So how do you tell that story clearly? Beginning, middle, end, without losing track?
Well, the framework that keeps coming up in the sources is the STAR method. It's basically a 4-step fix, helps turn, vague experiences into structured achievements.
STAR, okay, break that down for us.
Sure. S is for situation. So what was the context? What was going on?
Okay.
T is for task. What was your specific job? Your responsibility in that situation.
Right, task. Then comes A.
A is action.
Right.
This is the core of it. What exactly did you do? What steps did you take?
Got it. Situation, task, action. What's R?
R is result. And honestly, this is the one people forget most often. What happened because of your action? What was the outcome?
Okay, STAR. Situation, task, action, result. But I wonder, does that sound a bit robotic? Like reading a script?
That's a really good point, and something the sources warn about. It's a mental guide, right?
Right.
Not a script you memorize word for word. The biggest mistake is spending too much time on the S&T, the setup.
Right, the backstory.
Yeah. And then rushing, or worse, completely skipping the R, the result. If you forget the R, it just sounds like you're describing work, or maybe even complaining. It doesn't sound like an achievement.
Ah, I see. The result proves the value.
Exactly. Let's try an example. Classic problem-solving one. Question. Can you describe a time you solved a problem at work?
Okay.
So, situation. Well, in my last role, we had this major supply chain issue. A really high-value client's order got delayed unexpectedly.
Situation set. Now task.
Task. My specific job was to handle all the communication with the client and coordinate internally to figure out a quick solution. We really couldn't afford to damage that relationship.
Okay, clear responsibility. Now, the action. This is where the strong verbs come in, right?
Yes. So, action. I immediately collaborated with our logistics team. We found a fast-track workaround, and I personally called the client, gave them hourly updates, explained exactly what we were doing.
Nice. Proactive. And the result?
Result, because we jumped on it so fast, we actually got the full order delivered within 24 hours of the original deadline.
Wow.
And the client specifically mentioned how much they appreciated the transparency and the quick response. It really solidified our partnership going forward.
See, that's powerful. And the English itself wasn't overly complex, was it?
Not at all. Simple, clear language.
Lecture?
The structure did the heavy lifting. It let the speaker focus on delivering those actions clearly.
That simplicity is really key, isn't it? And the STAR thing, it's not just for problems, right?
Yeah.
Achievements, too.
Absolutely. Same logic.
Yeah.
Say you're asked about a marketing campaign you ran.
Okay.
Task might be, designing a new social media strategy. Action could be creating content plans, managing the posting schedule, collaborating with a designer.
And the result needs to be measurable if possible.
Ideally, yeah. Result. We saw a 40% increase in engagement over the quarter. It just works because the interviewer always knows where you're going with the story.
Yeah.
It feels organized.
Right, makes sense.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The sources mentioned something interesting, a link between this kind of structured thinking and how you actually sound. Like structure improves rhythm, maybe even pronunciation. How does that work?
Yeah, it's about cognitive load. Think about it. If you're trying to figure out what to say and what order to say it in, all at the same time.
Your brain's working overtime.
Totally overloaded. And that overload shows up as hesitation, searching for words. Your rhythm gets choppy.
Okay.
But when the STAR structure takes care of the order, your brain has more resources free. It can focus on speaking more smoothly, linking words, making clearer sounds.
So it's not just pronunciation, it's the overall flow.
Exactly. That's what people hear as fluency.
Yeah.
It's rhythm, really, not about speaking super fast.
And speaking of rhythm killers, filler words.
Oh, yeah. Big ones.
Starting answers with,
Well, actually, so. It just screams hesitation, doesn't it? Kills that professional vibe.
completely. Those little words eat up time and just project uncertainty. So the sources suggest swapping them out.
With what?
They call them confident openers. Basically, short phrases that buy you a second to gather your thoughts, but they sound intentional, professional.
Okay, give me some examples instead of,
You could say something like, "That's an excellent question. Let me share a specific example." See? Buys you time. Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds much better. What else?
Or just keep it simple. Sure, I'd be happy to explain my experience in that area. Direct, confident.
Okay.
Or maybe if it's a tougher question that needs a moment's thought. Let me consider the best example for that. Generally, my approach to those situations is...
So you acknowledge your thinking, but in a structured way.
Exactly. These little starters, they don't add complexity, but they just lift the whole tone. Give you that beat you need before launching into your STAR answer.
Nice. Okay, let's tackle some of those really tricky questions, the complex ones that test fit, and self-awareness.
Right, like the classic, "Why do you want to work here?"
Yeah. People panic, start talking all about themselves, forget the company.
The key here is intentionality again. You have to show you've done your homework and you see a real connection.
So structure it.
Definitely. Think 3 pillars. First, show genuine admiration for something specific about the company. Second, align your key skills with their culture or needs. Third, state how you want to contribute.
Okay, so like.
Well, I've been following Company X for a while, and I really admire your focus on mention something specific like innovation or teamwork.
Step 1, admiration.
Then, I feel my skills in, say, communication and project coordination really align well with the kind of collaborative culture you seem to have here.
Step 2, alignment.
And most importantly, I'm really excited about the chance to contribute directly to mention a specific goal or project if you know one.
Step 3, contribution. Concise, shows research. I like it.
Simple English again, but delivered with that intention. It's memorable.
Okay, now for the one everyone dreads, the what's your greatest weakness question.
Yes. The self-awareness test.
People freeze up. They don't want to admit a flaw. How do you handle that fluently?
You have to frame it as growth. It's about showing you're self-aware, yes, but also that you actively work on improving. You need to pivot quickly from the weakness to the action and the positive outcome.
So it's another mini story.
Kind of, yeah. But the transition is key. Don't just state a flaw. Say something like, early in my career, I sometimes struggled with delegating tasks effectively. I tended to want to do everything myself.
Okay, that's the weakness. Now the pivot.
However, I realized this wasn't sustainable. So I actively sought out training in project management techniques.
So I actively sought out training. That's the turning point.
Exactly. And I learned to trust my team members more, which actually led to better outcomes and freed me up for higher level strategy. See? Weakness, action, positive result.
That's much better than just saying, I'm a perfectionist. What are some other transition phrases? If it wasn't training.
You could say something like, I noticed I was sometimes getting bogged down in minor details, which could slow things down.
To address this, I now make sure I always prioritize my tasks using something like the Eisenhower matrix. That really helps me stay focused on what's most impactful. It shows you identified it, you took action, and you manage it.
Got it. Identify, action, manage. And the sources mentioned emotional tone here too, right? Sounding human.
Oh, absolutely. Structure helps with this too, because it frees you up to think about delivery. If you sound flat, like a robot reading star points, it doesn't land.
Right.
You need those little shifts in energy. Maybe when you talk about the challenge or the lesson learned from the weakness, you slow down slightly, use connecting words like however or actually. It shows reflection.
Like a little pause for thought.
Yeah. I initially found the scope of that project quite challenging. However, that experience taught me so much about adaptability. Then when you talk about the positive result or the action you took, your pace and energy might lift slightly. It sounds more natural, more sincere.
More conversational. Okay, that makes sense. So structure is king, but what about vocabulary? Do we need some good words? Well, yes and no. Like we said, fancy words aren't the main goal. But the sources do suggest some simple upgrades. Specific power verbs that can make standard phrases sound a bit more polished, more professional.
Okay, like little tweaks.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of them as things you consciously layer into the action part of your star answers. They just add a bit of professional weight.
Give us some examples. What's a common one?
Okay, instead of the very general, I worked with.
Yeah, everyone says that.
I collaborated with the sales team. Or I partnered with. Just sounds a bit more active, more professional.
Okay, collaborated. What else? Instead of I did, like I did the report.
Right. Upgrade that to I handled the data analysis or I prepared the presentation.
Handled, prepared. Good. What about if you were in charge of something, not just I controlled?
That sounds a bit controlling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Try I managed the project budget or I oversaw the implementation.
Managed, oversaw. Nice. And one more, a really common one is I made sure.
Yeah, that's a bit informal. The stronger, more professional verb is I ensured.
Ensured. Okay. I ensured all deadlines were met.
Exactly. I ensured compliance with regulations. Sounds much stronger.
So let's put a few together in an action step.
Okay, how about this? During that project, I managed the design timeline, collaborated closely with our key vendors, and ensured we maintained clear communication across 3 different departments.
Managed, collaborated, ensured. Okay, I hear it. It doesn't sound overly complex, but it does sound more polished.
That's the idea. Small upgrades, combined with that solid star structure, that's how you get answers that are both clear and professional sounding.
Right, okay, this is all great in theory. But how do people actually practice this? What are the actionable steps for you listening?
Good question. Practice is everything. The sources are clear.
Yeah.
You need to move this from just knowing it to actually doing it. Muscle memory.
So first step.
Write down, say, 3 really common interview questions. You know the ones. Tell me about yourself, describe a challenge, or describe a time you showed leadership, and maybe why should we hire you?
Okay, get the questions down. Then
actually sit down and practice answering each one out loud. Use the STAR method for the behavioral ones. Maybe a simple 3-point structure for why hire you.
Force yourself to use the structure.
Yes. And then this is crucial. Record yourself. Use your phone, whatever.
Ugh, nobody likes listening to themselves.
I know. But you have to. Listen back. Listen for your tone. Are you monotone? Listen for those awkward pauses, the ums and uhs. Are you rushing? How does your confidence actually sound?
So awareness is the first step to fixing it.
Absolutely. If you can't hear the problem, the shaky rhythm, the hesitation, you can't fix it.
Okay, that makes sense. We actually had a great insight on this from a student source. Let's call him Alex. He recorded himself loads, got really frustrated.
Yeah. What did he find?
He realized his English vocab was fine. The problem, it was his breathing. He was getting anxious, taking short, shallow breaths.
Yes. Very common.
And it was totally wrecking his natural speaking rhythm, made him sound rushed, uncertain, even though he knew the answers.
That is such a key point. Your breath controls your pace and your tone more than anything else. So for everyone listening, here's a specific technique coaches often recommend.
Why?
Practice this. Breathe in deeply, through your nose ideally, for about 4 seconds. Hold it gently for maybe 2 seconds. Then speak one complete intentional sentence on the exhale.
In for 4, hold for 2, speak a sentence out.
Yeah. Practice that consciously. It trains your body, your nervous system, to deliver speech with more calm, more control. That feeling of calm is presence.
Presence. And that ties into the nonverbal stuff too, right? Like gestures, eye contact.
Definitely. When you're not desperately scrambling for words or structure because you've practiced that, you have more mental bandwidth for the other things. Making natural eye contact, using relaxed hand gestures, it all comes together to make even simple English feel fluent because you seem comfortable and in control.
It all connects back. Okay, let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here?
I think the main synthesis is this. Fluency in an interview. It's maybe 30% pure language skill and honestly like 70% delivery. It's about intentionality.
They're testing your attitude, your organization through your English.
Exactly. The goal isn't to sound like a walking dictionary or a robot. It's to sound calm, clear, organized, and, well, conversational.
And I guess that golden rule applies. If you can explain something complex simply, using a structure like STAR, you show you've really mastered it.
Right. Fluent speakers often simplify. They don't overcomplicate.
Okay, so a final thought for everyone listening.
Well, given that the real aim is this kind of intentional delivery, not necessarily linguistic perfection, here's something to think about.
Okay.
How might focusing primarily on your attitude during the interview, specifically on maintaining that calm rhythm, that intentional pace we talked about, using structure and breath, how might that change how you prepare for your next one? Maybe more than just worrying endlessly about finding the perfect words.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it, not just interview questions in general, but those specific ones. The curveballs that kind of make your palms sweat.
Right. Yeah, the classics.
Exactly. We're talking about things like, what's your biggest weakness, or why'd you leave your last job? The ones that feel like traps.
And, well, the thing is, they're not really meant to trip you up usually. It's more about testing your composure, how you think on your feet when the pressure's on.
Your verbal agility, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And look, fluency here isn't just about having perfect grammar. It's really more about emotional control, how you pace yourself, how strategic you are.
Okay, so that's the core idea we want you, the listener, to grasp today. It's about sounding confident, sounding natural, but not because you memorized a script.
Absolutely not. It's about adopting a different mindset, one that lets you structure your thoughts spontaneously, even in English under pressure.
Right. Which leads us nicely into this mindset shift you mentioned.
Yeah. So if you walk in thinking, okay, gotta hide all my flaws, you're kind of starting off on the wrong foot. You've lost that authenticity battle already. The key insight really is that every tough question, it's an opportunity, a chance to tell a story about growth. Interviewers, honestly, they don't expect perfection. They want people who are self-aware.
People who know themselves and know how they're improving.
Exactly. That ability to think about your own thinking, your own development, that's what they value.
Okay, so let's tackle the big one first. What is your biggest weakness? People hate this one.
Oh, yeah. It's the classic trap.
And the usual advice is show improvement, but how do people mess this up? What about that veiled strength thing? Like, I'm just too much of a perfectionist. Why does that bomb so often?
It bombs because it just screams insincere. It lacks honesty. It lacks real self-awareness. The interviewer hears that, and frankly, they kind of tune out. They know it's a canned answer.
So it backfires.
Totally. The better way. It needs like a 3-part structure. First, acknowledge a real weakness. Nothing job critical, obviously, but something genuine.
Okay.
Second, talk specifics. What action did you actually take to deal with it? And third, what was the result? Show some kind of improvement, maybe even something measurable.
So you're turning it into a mini story of development. Like, instead of just saying, I'm bad at prioritizing.
Right. You frame it, maybe something like, well, I used to struggle a bit when I had, multiple deadlines hitting at once. That lack of clear structure sometimes caused unnecessary stress.
Acknowledging the weakness and its impact?
Exactly. Then the action. So to fix this, I proactively started using Trello, and I also learned about the Eisenhower matrix for sorting tasks.
Got it. Specific tools.
And then the result.
Now.
I find I handle complex projects much more efficiently. I triage tasks clearly, which leads to getting things done on time more consistently.
See, that feels completely different. It's simple language, but the message is strong. Awareness, action, growth.
And it sounds fluent because it is a story. It's structured. It's about overcoming something real. It's not some robotic defense.
Okay, that makes sense for internal stuff, like weaknesses. What about external pressures, like, why did you leave your last job? That's another one where nerves can make people sound, well, negative.
Yeah, this one demands absolute diplomacy. You have to choose your words carefully, even if the real reason was, conflict or a bad boss or whatever.
You can't go there.
You just can't. You have to focus entirely on the positive, on aspiration, on the opportunity ahead. If you sound bitter or critical about a past employer,
the interviewer thinks, okay, they'll probably talk about us like that someday.
Exactly. It's an immediate red flag. So the Fluent approach, it frames the departure as just a natural next step forward, always forward.
Focusing on the pull towards the new role, not the push from the old one.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
You could say something like, I genuinely valued my time in the team at my previous company. I learned a lot, but I realized my career goals were shifting. And I was actively looking for a new opportunity that offered maybe a steeper learning curve or more responsibility in team management, which seems to align perfectly with what this position offers.
That's smooth. It's polite. It softens the leaving part and immediately pivots back to this job, this opportunity.
And that pivot shows maturity, professionalism. That signals competence and, again, that composure we talked about.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about the really unexpected stuff? The curveballs that seem designed purely to test how you react?
The creative ones.
Yeah, like if you were an animal, what would you be? Or maybe something more abstract, like how do you handle deep disappointment?
With those, the advice "don't overthink it" is good, but it's incomplete. It's not just about not overthinking, it's about recognizing they're judging your ability to structure a thought quickly, spontaneously.
So the actual answer, the animal you pick, matters less than how you get there.
Pretty much. We looked at feedback from people who stumbled on that animal question. The common problem wasn't picking the wrong animal. It was the panic, the long, awkward silence, the stammering.
Okay, so if they ask something like, how you handle stress, don't just blurt something out. Take a second. Structure it.
Exactly. Show some emotional maturity with a clear, maybe 3-step approach. You could say, confidently, well, first, I try to triage immediately. Stay organized, prioritize what has to be done.
Step 1, organize.
Second, I really believe in communication. So I'll talk to my team, see if we can delegate, manage expectations together. And third,
Step 2, communicate.
right. And third, I try to keep perspective. Remind myself that challenges often lead to finding better ways to do things. That structured approach helps stop small pressures becoming major stress.
I like that. It shows you have a repeatable process. You're not just reacting randomly. It's thoughtful.
And thoughtful is good.
Okay, speaking of things that cause stress, let's talk about the money question. What are your salary expectations? Super awkward.
Yeah. The ultimate pressure point, often.
How do you answer that without sounding greedy, but also without selling yourself short?
This is pure negotiation, really. It's a trap. Go too low, you've undervalued yourself from the start. Go too high, you might scare them off before they're sold on you.
So it's less about fancy words and more about control.
Exactly. Professional control. You need to deflect, but politely, without sounding like you're dodging the question completely.
So how does the fluent, composed professional handle this? What do you actually say?
You keep it respectful and you tune the focus back to the job itself. A good diplomatic response is something like, I'm definitely open to discussing compensation. I'd want it to be fair based on my experience and the full scope of this role's responsibilities.
Bringing it back to the role's scope.
Right. And you can add, I'm confident that once we clarify that scope fully, we can reach an appropriate figure. It shows you understand it's a value exchange. You're not just throwing out numbers. You're linking salary to the job's demands and your ability to meet them.
That feels solid. It respects their process, but signals your worth is tied to the job. Controlled communication again.
Precisely. And that brings us to maybe the toughest spot.
Yeah.
What if you genuinely just don't know the answer? Like a really technical question or something specialized you haven't encountered?
Yeah, that panic moment. What do you do?
Rule number 1, don't panic. Seriously. A short pause is okay. Silence is better than stammering and making something up.
So you can't bluff your way through it?
Definitely not. You can't hide the lack of knowledge, but you can show something even more valuable. How you solve problems, your willingness to figure things out.
Ah, so what's another opportunity in a weird way?
It really is. The strategy is honesty, but combined with an immediate pivot to process. You use that uncertainty to show integrity in how you think.
It's like a specific phrase.
Yeah, you could say something like that's a very specific question, and to be honest, I don't have the complete answer right off the top of my head.
Okay, direct honesty.
However, based on my understanding of mention a related area you do know, here's how I would approach finding the solution. I'd probably start by researching X, then consult Y.
Wow, okay. So you admit you don't know, but immediately demonstrate how you'd find out. You turn I don't know into here's how I learn and solve.
Exactly. You're showing the process of knowing. And that's where real fluency shines, thinking while speaking, structuring an approach even without all the data. It's like a dancer improvising, not just doing memorized steps.
That's a great analogy. It needs to feel improvised, built on skill, not just recited.
Which is why practicing needs to change too. Ditch the full scripts you've written out.
Okay, so what do you do instead?
Pick your 3 most feared questions, the ones that really make you nervous. Then, for each one, just write down maybe 3 or 4 keywords. Just bullet points.
That's it.
Just keywords, no full sentences.
Nope. Then, hit record on your phone or whatever, and practice answering using only those keywords as prompts. Force your brain to build the sentences naturally, in English, on the spot. Ah, I see. Because you can't recite, you have to improvise the structure around those keywords.
Precisely. You're actually training your brain for real-time sentence building. It gets rid of that stiffness, that unnatural sound that comes from translating in your head or reading a script.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, finally, let's touch on something subtle, but maybe just as important. Tone and pacing.
Critical. Absolutely critical. Even if your grammar isn't perfect in the moment, a calm, polite, confident tone builds trust way faster than fancy vocabulary.
Tone signals professionalism.
Definitely. And we need to be aware of different tonal signals, like using a slight upward intonation at the end of a sentence. That can sound engaging, collaborative, like you're inviting agreement.
So like I learned how to manage the team effectively, kind of checking in.
Yeah, something like that. Whereas a downward tone, that signals certainty, confidence, especially when you're stating results or conclusions.
Like, and as a result, our productivity went up 30%. More definitive.
Exactly. That subtle shift in pitch adds a layer of authority, of meaning, that goes beyond just the words.
And emotional intelligence comes into play here too, right? Especially when talking about challenges.
Hugely. You have to reframe past frustrations, turn them into growth opportunities, not lingering complaints.
So instead of saying, oh, that project was a nightmare.
Right. You say, that was certainly a challenging situation, but honestly, it really helped me develop better patience and maybe stronger negotiation skills. You frame the conflict as skill acquisition.
Turning a negative into a valuable soft skill. Smart.
It's essential framing. And look, sometimes you need a moment to find that frame, right? To structure that positive spin internally. That's where prepared phrases come in handy. They buy you a controlled pause.
Because silence can feel awkward, but a controlled pause feels thoughtful.
Exactly. So have a few professional phrases ready. Anchors for composure.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Simple things like, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment. Or, interesting point. I want to make sure I give that a thoughtful answer.
Okay. Or maybe connecting it to experience.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of a complex project I handled recently. These signal respect for the question. They let you control the rhythm, stop you from rushing into a bad answer.
Good tools. And then how do you end an answer? Sometimes they just kind of trail off.
Right. You need a smooth landing. A short, conclusive closing phrase. It signals you're done, you're confident in your answer.
What kind of phrases work for that?
Things like, so that's generally how I approach situations like that. Or, and I believe that approach has served me well so far. Or even, that's probably the main thing I learned from that experience. Just a neat wrap-up.
It gives it a sense of completion, closure.
Exactly. So, look, these difficult questions, they really are opportunities. A chance to show you're calm under pressure, you can structure your thoughts, and you have genuine professional confidence.
So the big takeaway for you, the listener, remember that mindset shift. Stop treating the interview like some kind of English test where you need perfect recall.
Yeah.
Treat it like a real professional conversation. You're there to show how you think, how you operate in real time. The more natural and balanced you sound,
The more fluent you'll actually appear. The secret isn't complex words. It's that psychological balance, that emotional control, especially when things get tricky.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. If real fluency is about thinking while speaking, about that emotional control, what's one nonverbal thing you could practice this week?
Interesting.
Maybe it's maintaining steady eye contact during one of those controlled pauses, or offering just a small, calm smile when asked a tough question. Something you can practice to shore up that emotional control before a single word even comes out. Start with the control and let the word follow.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so if you're learning English for your career, you probably know that feeling, right?
Oh, yeah.
That moment in an interview, maybe an English interview, where everything just freezes.
Yeah.
You know your stuff, you're fluent usually, but then they hit you with that curveball question.
And your mind just goes blank.
Exactly. Vocabulary gone. Suddenly, English feels like this impossible wall. Panic sets in.
It's pure pressure. And look, that's really our mission today. The actual difference, between someone who seems nervous and someone who projects confidence, it's usually not about perfect grammar.
Right.
It's about how you handle things, how you buy time gracefully, how you structure a complex answer, how you deal with not knowing something. We're getting past just words today into real communication strategy.
And that's what this deep dive is all about. We've gathered insights on fluent English interview strategies, and we're going to distill the really key stuff, those specific phrases, the ways of organizing your thoughts that make you sound natural, thoughtful, and importantly, like you're in control.
Yeah, even when you're totally blindsided by a question.
Exactly. It's about turning that basic English skill into professional communication power.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's jump right in. Strategy number 1, buying time. That intentional pause.
Yeah.
Because just rushing to fill silence, that's how you end up rambling.
Total mess, yeah. The research really hammers this home. Buying time needs to signal that you're being thoughtful, not that you're confused or lost.
Thoughtful, not confused. I like that.
That distinction is everything. You're not struggling with English, you're respecting the question. So the phrases you use, they need to be polite professional signals. I'm thinking.
Okay, so what are some go-to phrases?
Simple things work best, like, that's an interesting question. Let me think for a moment.
Okay.
Or maybe, I haven't thought about that specific angle before, but based on my experience, I'd probably say...
Right, that gives you a few seconds.
Exactly. 3, maybe 5 seconds. Critical processing time.
But hold on. If I just keep saying, that's an interesting question, won't that start to sound, fake? Like I'm just stalling repeatedly?
That's a really good point, and yeah, it's a risk. If you lean on one phrase too much, it absolutely sounds robotic.
So what's the fix?
It comes down to how you say it. The tone, the delivery, that matters way more than the precise words. You gotta say it slowly, pause naturally, keep your voice steady. If you rush the phrase, that's an interesting question, let me think, you sound panicked. But deliver it calmly, keep eye contact. It signals organization, control.
So it's the confidence in the pause that sells it. Okay, makes sense. Now the big one. What if you genuinely don't know the answer? Especially a technical one. Buying time only lasts so long.
Right.
How do fluent speakers admit they don't know without sounding, weak or unprepared?
Yeah, this is high stakes. The absolute worst thing. Just a blunt, I don't know.
Yeah, conversation killer.
Totally. Yeah. Stops everything, offers nothing. What you need is context, maybe showing partial knowledge if you have it, and crucially, showing you're curious, eager to learn.
Okay, how do you signal that difference? Partial knowledge versus, zero knowledge?
Professionally, if you know something related, you qualify it. I'm not completely sure about the very latest standard there, but I believe the general approach involves X framework, shows you're in the ballpark.
Okay.
But if it's really outside your wheelhouse, you pivot to being coachable. Don't apologize for not knowing. Frame it as an opportunity.
Give me the magic phrase for that.
Something like, that specific area is outside my current experience, but honestly, I'd be really excited to learn more about it and how it applies in this role.
Wow. Okay, compare, I don't know, with that's outside my current experience, but I'd be excited to learn more.
Huge difference.
Night and day. One's a dead end. The other makes you sound curious, adaptable, like someone they'd want to teach.
Precisely. It's that coachability factor. It highlights soft skills, your attitude, your engagement. And honestly, in many interviews, that counts for a lot, sometimes more than knowing every single technical detail instantly.
Okay, that's really useful for those quick fire questions. Let's shift gears a bit. What about those bigger narrative questions? the behavioral ones.
Oh, yes, the classics.
Like, tell me about a time you resolved a conflict or describe a major challenge you overcame. This is where even native speakers can just wander off.
Oh, the rambling trap. It's so easy to fall into.
You start strong, then suddenly you're lost in the weeds, no clear point.
And that rambling, it kills perceived fluency. Look, when an interviewer asks that kind of question, they're usually checking off boxes, scoring specific competencies.
Right.
If your answer is just a jumble, they can't score you effectively. That's why the secret weapon, really, is the STAR method.
STAR. Okay, let's break that down. It's an acronym, gives you structure. STAR. Situation, task, action, result.
Exactly. Forces you to be clear, concise.
But let's dig into why interviewers love it so much. It's not just neatness, is it?
It's about, well, efficiency for them. Think about it. They often have scorecards, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you use STAR, you're basically pre-filling their scorecard. You give them clear data points. S, okay, understands context. T, took responsibility. A, showed initiative, used skills. R, had an impact.
Ah, I see. So if you just ramble, they have to mentally sift through everything you said to find those points.
Which is exhausting for them. So yeah, a structured STAR answer feels efficient, logical, it makes their job easier.
Okay, so let's make this concrete. Question. Tell me about a time you solved a problem at work. Contrast a bad answer with a STAR 1.
Okay, a bad answer might be like, yeah, well, last year we had this problem and I talked to some people and we kind of changed how we did things and it got better eventually. My boss seemed happy.
Vague, no clear sequence, weak verbs, nothing really landed.
Exactly. Now let's apply STAR using the example from the source material. Start crisp with the situation. Mess.
Okay, so in my last role, we had a key project that was running about 3 weeks behind schedule, mainly coordination issues. Clear context.
Perfect. Then define your specific role with the task, T.
Right. My task as a lead coordinator on that was to figure out what the bottleneck was and propose a fix to get us back on schedule. Shows responsibility.
Good. Now the action, A, this is where you use strong verbs. Show what you did.
So I analyzed our workflow, and it quickly became clear there was a big communication gap between the design team and the engineering team. So I implemented a new system, a mandatory shared real-time update platform that both teams had to use. Specific actions.
Excellent. And crucially, the payoff.
Yeah.
Quantifiable result.
Well, by putting that system in place, we didn't just make up the 3 weeks we were behind. We actually finished the whole project ahead of the original deadline.
Nice.
Which ended up saving the company something like £20,000 in potential late fees. Boom. That's a story. Clear, concise, impactful.
60 seconds, maybe 90, tells a whole professional story. It demonstrates logic, command, and that structure often reads as fluency, even if your vocabulary isn't super advanced.
Logical flow equals perceived fluency. Got it. Okay, moving on. The dreaded negative questions.
The weakness question. Or, tell me about a failure.
Yeah. If you're trying to sound professional and fluent, you can't just say, oh, I'm terrible at X. How do you handle these? The sources mention transformation language.
That's the key. You never, ever present a weakness as a current static flaw. It has to be framed as something from the past that led to growth. Acknowledge it, yes, but immediately pivot to the solution, the learning. Show that growth mindset.
Can you walk us through an example? Say, time management, that's a common one?
Right. Don't say, I'm bad at managing my time. No. Transform it. Maybe something like, earlier in my career, I sometimes struggled with structuring really large, open-ended projects. It could lead to some deadline stress.
Okay. Acknowledging the past issue.
So to address that, I've actually become quite disciplined about using specific planning tools. I find Kanban boards really helpful, and I'm pretty rigorous now about setting reminder alarms and tackling the trickiest parts of a project first.
So you turned a potential negative into a story about self-awareness and concrete problem-solving strategies.
That's exactly the goal. Same thing with failure. Don't dwell on the mistake itself. Focus squarely on the lesson learned.
Example?
Maybe. I once missed an internal deadline early on because I hadn't pushed hard enough to get clear priorities from my manager beforehand. Acknowledge it briefly. While, that was tough at the time, it taught me the absolute importance of proactive communication. Now, I always follow up important conversations with a quick email, outlining objectives and priorities before diving in. Lesson learned, behavior changed.
That neatly brings us to emotional intelligence, or EQ. The sources pointed out something interesting. Even a grammatically perfect answer using star can kind of fall flat if it sounds robotic.
Yes, cold, detached. It's a real problem.
So how do we inject that warmth, that human connection, into our English during an interview?
It's about using language that shows empathy, reflection. You want them to see you as a potential colleague, a human being. You do that with little phrases that build rapport.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Simple things, like if they describe a challenge the team is facing, you might say, I can completely understand how that would be challenging.
Shows empathy.
Or when talking about your own past, maybe, that experience really helped me grow, both professionally and personally. It softens things, shows you're reflective.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I also saw mention of soft connectors. Things like, actually, to be honest, wait, aren't those filler words? I thought we were supposed to cut those out entirely.
Okay, this is a super important distinction, and it trips people up. There's a difference between hesitation fillers, the ums and s's that signal you're stuck, and these soft connectors.
Yeah.
Connectors like, to be honest, actually, in fact, or even a well-placed, they act more like conversational grease. They regulate the rhythm, add a touch of natural emphasis, make it feel less like a prepared speech.
So using them carefully makes it feel less like a monologue, more like a real conversation.
Exactly. They dial down the formality just a notch, which increases how authentic you sound. Compare saying, communication is important. Kind of blunt, right?
Yeah, a bit dry.
Now try. To be honest, that whole experience really helped me understand just how crucial clear communication actually is. It feels more personal, more relatable, therefore more fluent and convincing.
Interesting. Okay, that flows nicely into maybe the biggest delivery hurdle, sounding flat or too scripted. When I get nervous, focusing hard on grammar, my voice can just flatten out.
That monotone delivery. It's a dead giveaway that you're reciting, not conversing. Intonation, the rise and fall of your voice is absolutely vital. It's how you signal what's important in your message.
Right. So if I just say, my main strength is teamwork, and I'm also good at problem solving. All in one load.
It sounds like you're reading a shopping list. Boring. But if you use natural rhythm and stress, my main strength is teamwork, voice up slightly. And I'm also really good at problem solving, stress on problem solving.
Ah, the emphasis guides the listener.
Totally. It sounds alive. Remember, fluency isn't about speed. It's about rhythm and stressing the key information. The listener picks up on that rhythm and it helps them process what you're saying.
Okay, rhythm and emphasis, not speed. Got it. And the final piece here, avoiding sounding too perfect, too memorized. We prep hard, but then if the conversation takes a slight turn,
the memorized sentence breaks and the whole thing falls apart. Yeah, it's a trap.
So what's the solution the sources offer?
It's actually pretty simple but powerful. Stop trying to memorize perfect, long sentences. Start thinking in keywords and core ideas, like bullet points in your head.
So instead of memorizing, verbatim, I am an adaptable and reliable person who consistently demonstrates success working within cross-functional teams and navigating ambiguous project requirements.
Which sounds stiff anyway. Just lock in the keywords. Adaptable, reliable, team player, handle ambiguity.
And then when you speak, you just build the sentences naturally around those core ideas.
Precisely. So it comes out sounding more like, well, I definitely describe myself as adaptable. That's key. And I'm very reliable, definitely a team player. I actually enjoy working in those cross-functional teams where maybe things aren't perfectly defined from the start. See? It flows. It's conversational.
It sounds like you.
That's the gold standard for fluency and confidence. It gives you structure and flexibility. You can adapt on the fly without crashing.
This has been incredibly helpful. It really shifts the focus from just, avoiding grammar mistakes to actually demonstrating confidence through structure and how you communicate.
We've hopefully moved the needle from just learning English to communicating professionally in English. Should we quickly recap those key building blocks people can use right away?
Good idea. Okay, first, buying time gracefully. That's an interesting question. Let me think for just a second.
And handling, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about the specifics on that, but I genuinely love to learn more about it. Show that curiosity.
Right. For any story or example, use STAR. Situation, task, action, result. And always wrap up with the takeaway. What I really learned from that situation was...
Yes. And finally, sound like a real person. Use those soft connectors naturally. Focus on rhythm and stressing keywords, not just perfect sentences. Remember, it's the flow, the structure, the confidence. That's what reads as professional fluency. It's not about zero mistakes.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive really underscores that fluency is so much more strategic than just vocabulary. It's about structure, confidence. So here's a final thought. If fluency is really about confident, structured responses, where else, outside of an interview, could using STAR or those graceful time-buying phrases immediately boost your influence?
Good question.
Think about it. Unexpected questions in a big client meeting, having to give a quick impromptu update to your boss, that structured, keyword-driven, confident approach, that could be a total game changer for how you're perceived professionally, way beyond just nailing the interview.
Side.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are cracking the code on what's probably the most common, maybe the most stress-inducing interview question out there. What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Oh, yeah. That one. Everyone dreads it a little, don't they?
Totally. And it's more than just a tough question, isn't it? It feels like a real high-stakes communication moment. Because even if your vocabulary is perfect, hesitating, or giving some, canned answer, it can instantly make you sound less self-aware, less fluent, really, and maybe less qualified.
Right. It signals something isn't quite clicking.
So our mission today is to cut through that noise. We've looked at the sources, and we want to give you an actionable strategy. Turn that discomfort into, well, a professional showcase.
Exactly. Making you sound fluent, authentic, and basically in control of your own story.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's get straight to the mindset shift needed here.
Yeah, the mindset shift is absolutely key. Often we go into this question defensively thinking, okay, what trap are they setting? Right, like they're trying to catch you out. But fundamentally what they're doing is a quick check on your emotional intelligence, your EQ, and your self-awareness. It's less about testing raw honesty and more about seeing how you communicate something complex yourself.
Okay. So if you can talk about your strengths, and just as importantly, your areas for improvement in a natural, professional way, well, you instantly show maturity. You sound more fluent in a deeper sense. Okay, let's start with the easier side than strengths. The sources we looked at are pretty clear. Interviewers aren't looking for a laundry list. No, definitely not. They want stories. Mini stories, really.
But why stories? What makes that better than just saying, I'm detail-oriented?
Well, because anyone can claim they're detail-oriented or a great team player. That's an adjective. It's an aspiration, maybe. The moment you back that up with a short, relevant story, something specific to the job you want, you're showing it in action. You're demonstrating the capability, not just claiming you have it.
So for you listening, this means really looking at the job description and tailoring it.
Absolutely. If the role is heavy on client management, you talk about communication, maybe negotiation skills, don't spend time talking about your awesome spreadsheet skills if it's not relevant, right? So the formula is name the strength, then immediately give that mini example. Can you give us a really concrete example of how that elevates the answer? Sure. Let's take communication. A basic answer is just, I have strong communication skills. Okay, fine.
A bit flat.
Yeah. A fluent, higher level answer sounds more like this.
One of my core strengths, I think, is organizational communication. For instance, in my previous role, I was leading this cross-functional project, ended up coordinating between 4 different departments.
Okay.
My job wasn't just directing. It was really about making sure everyone had the same information, at the same time. And doing that actually prevented a 2-week delay we thought was coming. It takes, 15 seconds? But it proves the point with context. That's much more powerful. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because avoiding common traps seems key to fluency. The sources highlighted 2 big mistakes that can sink your credibility fast. What are those?
Okay, the first one is just giving too much. The scattergun approach, I call it?
Right, just listing everything. I'm creative, punctual, hardworking, responsible.
Exactly. It sounds like you just memorized your resume summary. It actually suggests the lack of focus, ironically. Professionals, they pick just 1 or 2 key strengths, ones that really fit the role, and then use that valuable interview time to expand with those stories we just talked about.
So depth over breadth.
Every single time. Depth trumps breadth here.
And the second mistake, you mentioned it relates to depth, or rather the lack of it.
That's it. It's using those basic kind of vague adjectives without giving any professional context or value. Like saying, I'm honest.
Which is good, but kind of table stakes, right? It's expected,
It doesn't tell the interviewer much about your working style. You need to link it to professional value. So a better way might be, I really value honesty in communication because I have found that transparent feedback, even when it's difficult, is usually the fastest way to resolve conflicts and keep projects aligned.
I see. That connects the trait to a work outcome.
Precisely. That contextualization shows maturity. Real fluency here means weaving your personal traits into how you actually operate professionally.
That makes a lot of sense. But there's a risk, isn't there? When you give strong examples, you might sound, well, arrogant, like you're bragging.
That's a very real concern.
How do we deliver these powerful, story-driven answers confidently, but without sounding boastful?
Okay, this is where a technique using softeners comes in handy. Softeners are basically conversational tools that signal a bit of humility and professionalism. They show you recognize your ability, but you're not, declaring yourself the best thing since sliced bread.
Okay, so how does that work in practice? Well, compare these two. The overly confident version: I am the single best problem solver on my old team. Nobody else could touch what I did. Oof, a bit much, yeah. Versus the softer, more professional approach. I found I'm generally quite effective at problem solving, and I actually genuinely enjoy challenges that let me synthesize different bits of information and figure out solutions. See the difference?
It's still confident, but less absolute.
Exactly. You're claiming the skill, but you're framing it more as something you're good at and enjoy, rather than a global declaration of superiority. It feels more collaborative.
That's a really useful psychological insight. Using softeners kind of reassures the interviewer that you're coachable, that you can work with others even if you're highly competent. Right. It balances confidence with that necessary humility. Okay, now, let's tackle the really tricky part: weaknesses. We know they want to see self-awareness, see that you recognize areas for growth. But how do you choose a weakness? If I pick something real, but maybe not critical, how do I avoid sounding like I'm just dodging the question? That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of it. The secret isn't to pick something fake, but to choose a real weakness that, crucially, you have some control over improving. And importantly, it shouldn't be a core, critical requirement for the job itself.
Like, don't say attention to detail is your weakness if you're applying to be an accountant. Precisely. That's an instant disqualifier. They don't expect you to be perfect, but they do expect you to be working on things. So our sources strongly recommend framing the weakness using this structure: weakness, a solution, or a growth.
Yeah.
Weakness, solution, growth. Okay.
The three-part answer is like psychological gold. It takes the focus off the fault itself and immediately shifts it onto your ability to be strategic and improve, your capacity for growth.
Let's see that structure in action. What about the classic one people use, being a perfectionist? How do we apply that three-part structure so it sounds natural? Okay, so you start by acknowledging the issue, the weakness. Well, I sometimes find myself taking a bit too long to finish tasks because, I want everything to be absolutely perfect. That's the weakness. Right. Then the solution: showing awareness. But I've definitely recognized that perfect can be the enemy of done, especially in a fast-paced environment. And finally, the growth part. So now I've actually started implementing a kind of self-imposed 80-20 rule, focusing that final 20% of effort only, where it really adds maximum value for the client or the project. And that's significantly improved my turnaround time.
Yeah.
That feels much more like a mature, thoughtful response, not just an excuse.
It is. Or take someone who's maybe a bit shy about presenting to big groups. Frame it historically, show the process. I used to be quite hesitant about speaking up in large team meetings, especially if I hadn't had much time to prepare beforehand. Weakness. So, to work on this, I've made it a habit to prepare at least, say, 3 key points or questions related to the agenda before every meeting. Solution. And this preparation really helps ensure I can contribute meaningfully and more confidently, kind of moving past that initial shyness. Growth.
Even something like being an overthinker can work with this. Absolutely. You could say something like, I sometimes find myself overthinking before making major decisions, maybe worrying too much about potential pitfalls. Weakness. My approach now has been to set stricter time limits for the research phase, and I also make a point to deliberately involve a trusted colleague for maybe just a quick 10-minute sounding board before I finalize things. Solution. This has really helped me trust my own judgment more while still having that sense of accountability. Growth. So that structure, weakness, solution, growth, it really is non-negotiable if you want to sound mature and, fluent about your own development.
Completely. It shows you see weaknesses not as fixed flaws, but as problems you can solve with new strategies or processes. And other good examples we found in the sources, framed positively. Things like being hesitant at first, maybe too detail-focused, or tending to multitask a bit too much. All of these can be turned into a story about correcting a process failure.
And of course, the absolute cardinal rule: never, ever say, I have no weaknesses.
Right. That's just an immediate red flag for lack of self-awareness, isn't it?
Huge red flag. Avoid it at all costs.
Okay. So we've nailed the content, the structure. But let's talk delivery. How do we make these structured answers sound, authentic? Not like we just pulled them off a website list. That seems key to real fluency.
Absolutely. You need those conversational bridges, those hooks. So when you're talking about strengths, avoid just baldly stating them. Introduce them more naturally. Maybe say, I'd probably describe myself as someone who naturally gravitates toward, or an area where I find I really excel and that I actually enjoy is.
So it sounds more reflective. Exactly. It shows self-reflection, not just stating a supposed fact about yourself.
And what about when you're introducing that potentially awkward weakness answer? How can language soften the entry point?
You want to set the stage for improvement right away, not dwell on the fault. So try starting with phrases like, something I'm actively working to improve is. Or perhaps, I used to sometimes struggle with managing X, but through doing Y, I'm learning to address it more effectively.
Okay, so that immediately points towards the solution part of the weakness solution growth structure.
Right. Positions you straight away as a learner, someone focused on development, rather than just a flawed candidate owning up to a problem. Now, connecting this to that bigger picture of emotional maturity, our sources mentioned a really high-level move. Actually blending strengths and weaknesses together in one response. That sounds incredibly tricky to pull off without sounding totally rehearsed. It is a high-level move, definitely. But if you can execute it well, it really does elevate you. Because it shows self-regulation, nuance. It proves you see yourself as a whole person, where sometimes your greatest strength has a related downside.
Like two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. They often share the same root cause.
Can you give an example of how that blend works? Maybe with the detail orientation, what we mentioned. Okay, sure, you could blend it like this. Well, I'd say one of my key strengths is that I'm incredibly detail-oriented. I really make sure the smallest elements are accurate, which I know is essential for things like compliance, strength, but transition. The flip side of that strength sometimes is that I can spend maybe a bit too much time checking things that offer diminishing returns, weakness. So I've been actively learning to use project management tools more effectively to delegate certain quality checks where it's appropriate, which lets me focus my really deep attention only on the truly high impact tasks. Solution growth. Wow. Okay, that's brilliant because you're not just saying I'm working on it. You're showing how you're actively mitigating the potential negative side of your own strength. That's like the definition of professional growth right there.
It shows you already have processes in place to manage yourself effectively and succeed in the role.
Right.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's just reemphasize that final mistake alert. We've given frameworks, structures, but nothing kills credibility faster than sounding completely canned, right?
Oh, absolutely. If your answer sounds like you ripped it straight from a top 10 interview answers blog post, the interviewer knows. They hear those answers all the time.
And you lose all believability instantly. Just contrast the generic, totally unspecific, my weakness is perfectionism with something personalized, narrative-driven like. I realized last year on the X project that I was spending way too much time perfecting minor details in internal reports that, frankly, few people read closely. Since then, I've actually worked with my supervisor to establish a new pre-submission checklist, making sure I focus my intense attention primarily on the key data metrics and the executive summary, rather than, say, the precise formatting of the appendix. That personalization makes it a real story, not just a label.
It turns a boring adjective into a mini story of professional development. That's the key. So what does this all boil down to for you, our listener? When you're prepping for that next interview, that next conversation, remember to swap out those generic lists for job-relevant mini-stories when you talk strength. And apply that really effective weakness solution growth framework for any area of improvement you discuss.
Yeah, and when you combine these techniques, using those softeners we talked about, telling personalized stories, framing weaknesses around growth, it helps you sound not just grammatically correct, but genuinely mature, honest, and, well, alive.
Yeah, less like a robot reading a script.
Exactly. You shift from being just a passive candidate answering questions to being an active professional who's thoughtfully detailing their ongoing career journey.
So we saw how framing something like being too detail-focused can become a really positive growth story using that framework. When you grasp the weaknessy solution growth structure, you realize any perceived flaw is just an opportunity for narrative control. The question isn't really, what's your weakness? It's more like, what's the next chapter you're writing in your professional growth story?
That's a great way to put it.
So here's something to think about. Take that framework and think about the potential weakness of, say, tending to multitask too much. How could you turn that perceived flaw into your next great chapter about improved focus and better priority setting? Something concrete to practice right now.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take essential research and, well, we turn it into knowledge you can actually use today. And today, we're tackling something pretty high stakes. How to sound truly naturally fluent in conversations, especially when you're under pressure. Think interviews, important meetings, that kind of thing.
That's right. And our mission here, it's really about going beyond just, memorizing the right answers or vocabulary lists.
Right.
We're diving into connection, tone, flow, all those subtle things that make the difference between someone who just knows English words and someone who can genuinely communicate and connect using the language.
Okay, let's get into that because the core idea from our sources is really quite powerful, isn't it? Fluency isn't only about getting the answers right.
No.
It's about how comfortable, how natural you make the whole conversation feel for the other person.
Exactly. And, that feeling of comfort, it often gets decided in the first minute or two. It's kind of amazing. How many people prepare these brilliant answers to really complex industry questions, but then they sort of fall apart during the simple stuff at the beginning?
The small talk. Like, how was your morning? Or did you find the place okay?
Precisely. That's what we're calling the small talk surprise. And the sources really stress why it's so critical.
It's not just filler then.
No, definitely not. Those first few informal minutes, they basically set the emotional tone for everything that follows. They signal to the interviewer almost instantly, okay, this person is easy to talk to, they're comfortable here.
And that impression can sometimes be more powerful than the prepped answers later on.
It really can. That simple, warm exchange, it shows your personality, your natural conversational rhythm right away. You shift from just speaking at them to actually connecting with them.
Okay.
Ace that small talk, and you've built a rapport that honestly smooths over potential bumps later in the conversation.
So for you listening, if you want that shortcut to sounding confident, engaged, this is it. Let's dive into the specifics now, how to actually build that natural rhythm and connection, starting with, well, the sound itself.
Right. The music of conversation, as some sources put it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk fluency, the focus is all on words, vocabulary. But the research is pretty clear. Tone and rhythm, just as important, maybe even more so sometimes.
I think that's a huge mental shift for learners. We get so focused on perfect grammar, right? That we end up stripping all the life out of our delivery. But your tone, people interpret that before they even fully process your words.
So perfect grammar but a flat tone might actually sound less competent.
Absolutely. Less competent than maybe a sentence with a tiny error, but delivered with warmth, with a nice rhythm.
The sources had a really simple, clear example for this. Think about saying, I'm fine, thank you. Just flat, like that.
Yeah, it just stops the conversation cold, doesn't it?
Totally.
Now compare that to a warmer delivery, one that keeps the connection going. I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
It's the same basic words.
But the energy is completely different. That little lift in your voice on, how about you? It shows you're engaged, you're interested. It invites them back in.
And that difference, that energy, that's the rhythm. That's the music we're talking about.
Exactly. And fluency isn't about speed, It's not about talking fast. It's about using pitch and stress, and especially pauses in a natural way. If you speak too flat, even with perfect grammar, people hear it as, well, rehearsed, maybe nervous.
So how do you practice that? Is listening enough?
Listening is key, but you need to listen actively. Not just for what people say, but how. Where does their pitch go up to show interest? Like at the end of a question asking for clarification.
Right.
Where does it drop to show they're certain about something? And crucially, where do they pause naturally? Between ideas, maybe?
Like instead of rushing, you might say, I'd say teamwork is one of my biggest strengths. That little pause.
Precisely. That pause isn't dead air. It gives the listener a moment to take it in. It makes your point feel considered, not just spat out from memory.
Okay, so listen actively, but then what?
Then you absolutely have to record yourself. That's usually the moment it clicks. When you actually hear the difference between your own delivery, maybe it's a bit flat, and then you compare it to a recording of someone with that natural rhythm. That's the light bulb moment for a lot of learners.
That makes sense. Hearing yourself is often quite revealing. Okay, so once we find that rhythm, how do we keep the conversation flowing smoothly? This leads us to what the sources call anchor phrases, right?
Yes, exactly. Anchor phrases. These are crucial for avoiding those abrupt one-word answers that just kill the dialogue.
They stop it dead.
Yeah. Fluency, especially when the stakes are high, it's less about just showing off what you know.
And more about keeping the conversation going.
Right. It's about facilitating that conversation, making it easy for both sides.
Okay, so this is where it gets really practical for you listening. These little phrases, they aren't just filler words.
No, they're tactical. Think of them as tools.
Tools for what?
Well, first, they buy you thinking time. Really valuable thinking time. Second, they let a bit of your personality show through. And third, they actually lower the stress, the cognitive load, because you aren't trying to invent the perfect first word out of thin air every single time.
So instead of that awkward silence or just, while your brain is catching up.
Exactly. You use a professional anchor phrase. It's like conversational scaffolding. It holds things up while you build your next thought.
Okay, let's list some of the key ones the source has highlighted. Things you should really try to internalize, starting with ones that validate the question itself. That builds rapport right away.
Yeah, like simply saying, that's a great question. Or maybe something a bit more reflective, like, I completely agree with that point.
Okay, and what if you want to connect your own experience to something they just said?
Then something like, I actually had a similar experience when works really well. It shows you're listening and connecting the dots.
And for that moment when you genuinely need a second to think, without just going silent or saying,
If I think about it, I'd say that's a really graceful one. It signals, okay, I'm processing this. Give me a second to formulate a thoughtful response.
I like that. It sounds considered.
Yeah. And another one for adding a touch of authenticity, which actually makes you feel more confident because it feels honest.
It is.
To be honest, what I've learned from that is it just sounds very natural, very human.
These are simple, aren't they?
Yeah.
But powerful. They make your English sound much more considered and less robotic.
Absolutely. More human.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. There's another technique, almost like a secret weapon for connection, that came up a lot in the source material. Mirroring.
Ah, yes, mirroring. It's subtle, definitely, but it can be incredibly effective. And it's really rooted in emotional intelligence.
So what does it mean in practice?
It basically means matching, sort of gently matching the interviewer's tone, their pace of speaking, and their general level of formality.
So you're tuning into their energy, not just their words. If they're speaking fast, maybe a bit serious, you kind of match that.
Yeah, you adjust your style slightly. If they're more relaxed, more conversational, you allow yourself to relax a bit too. You don't want to mismatch.
Why did that work so well?
Because it creates this subconscious feeling of rapport. They feel like you're on the same wavelength. Imagine if you walk in super high energy and formal, but the interviewer is clearly stressed, talking quickly. It can create a kind of friction, you know?
Yeah, a disconnect. Let's use that example from the research. Say the interviewer seems rushed, sounds a bit harried, and says something like, look, we've had a pretty busy week here, so let's just jump right in.
Okay. Your fluent mirroring response wouldn't ignore that. You'd acknowledge and match that slightly busy energy. Maybe something like, I can imagine it seems like a busy time for everyone lately. Really appreciate you fitting me in.
Ah, I see. So you validate their state instead of just ignoring it or going completely opposite.
Exactly. That a little bit of synchronicity makes them feel understood, makes them feel more comfortable with you. You instantly seem easier to deal with.
That's a really powerful idea. It reframes the whole interaction. It's not just question-answer. It's a collaborative flow. But what if that flow hits a snag? Like even fluent speakers don't catch every single word, especially with complex questions or maybe unfamiliar jargon.
That's a great point. How do you handle that uncertainty gracefully without killing the connection? Just freezing up or blurting out what is obviously not ideal.
Right. Kills the mood.
So we need some polite phrases, some vocabulary to navigate those moments and stay in control.
Okay. So if you genuinely didn't understand the question,
the advice is to frame your request clearly, politely. Make it about needing help, not about you failing. Something simple like, I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? Or, sorry, I didn't quite catch the last part.
Clear, respectful. What if the question's good, but just complex? You need a moment to structure your answer.
Combine one of those anchor phrases with a direct request for time. Like, that's a really good question. Let me just think about that for a second. It shows you value the question.
Okay. And what about when you're not totally sure of the answer? Maybe it's speculative.
It happens, right? Especially with future-focused questions. The key is to preface your attempt. Manage expectations. Say something like, I'm not entirely sure, but based on what I know, or from what I remember, the best approach might be.
So you're still contributing, but honestly.
Exactly. And then always try to close out interactions or answers with phrases that show respect and reinforce that connection we built. Things like, absolutely, I completely agree with that, or even just, I really appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on that.
It keeps that positive vibe going,
Mm-hmm.
which leads us nicely into another major point, moving beyond just memorizing things. Because real interviews, the successful ones, they feel like conversations, right? Not recitals.
Oh, definitely. If you sound like you're reading from a script you wrote in your head, you lose all that natural rhythm, the tone, everything we've just talked about.
So the advice is, what? Stop memorizing altogether.
Not quite. It's a mental shift. Stop trying to memorize full sentences or paragraphs. Instead, focus on internalizing key phrases, core ideas, and those useful transition words.
Okay, let's contrast that. The old way, the non-fluent memorized approach might sound like, well, robotic. Like, my name is Sarah. I am hardworking. I am punctual. I am motivated.
Yeah, like a checklist. Very flat, focuses only on the content, zero warmth.
Right. Now contrast that with a more natural, fluent approach, using some of those anchor phrases, focusing on action.
Well, I'd probably describe myself as someone who really enjoys taking initiative. And I find I work best in teams where, we share ideas freely and kind of push each other to do better work.
See, that second one feels warm, confident, conversational. It tells a mini story. That's what people remember, isn't it? The feeling of talking to someone competent and engaged.
That's exactly it. And speaking of engaged, dynamic conversations, interruptions happen.
Ah, yes. The dreaded interruption.
Right. Many people freeze up. They think it means they failed or the interviewer is annoyed.
But the sources say that's often not the case.
Often it's just the sign of interest. They got excited about something you said.
So the key is not to freeze. Adjust smoothly. So you can handle a real back and forth.
Exactly. Use a fluent transition. You could say something like, sure, that's a great point. If I could just finish this thought quickly. Or maybe, yes, absolutely. And just to add to that, it shows you're still in control, still engaged with them.
Okay, this is all great practical advice. Let's talk about the mental game now, the confidence anchor.
Yes, this is critical. Because fluency is so tied to your state of mind, isn't it?
Definitely, if you're panicking inside.
Even simple sentences, ones you know perfectly well, suddenly become hard to find, hard to say correctly. Your brain just locks up.
Been there. So the confidence anchor is a trick for that.
It's a mental technique to fight that pre-interview panic or that negative voice in your head. It's basically a simple phrase you repeat to yourself just before you go in, something to center you.
Like what? Give me an example.
Needs to be simple, positive, affirming, something like, I've prepared for this, I know what I'm doing, or maybe, I belong here. Just repeat it quietly to yourself.
And that helps how?
It helps ground you. It lowers that mental stress, that cognitive burden, which then frees up your brain to access the English you already know and let it flow more naturally.
And is there a physical tip for that moment you walk in?
Yes, a really simple but effective one. Right when you sit down, as you greet the interviewer, just take one small, conscious, deep breath.
Just one breath.
Yeah. It helps steady your voice right from the start. Ensures your tone is clear, not shaky. It helps your whole body language project a bit more calm confidence from that very first word.
It shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from worrying about every little grammar mistake.
Exactly. And towards just clear, confident, connected communication. The goal isn't just to sound fluent to them. It's also to feel less burdened yourself. To feel like you're actually talking, not constantly calculating verb tenses.
Wow. Okay, this has been incredibly useful. We've really moved beyond just thinking. Fluency is about knowing lots of words.
It's so much more. It's rhythm, it's tone, it's that connection, and definitely confidence.
Let's quickly recap some of those really powerful phrases again. Remember, replace those memorized monologues with conversational anchors.
Right. Start descriptions with things like, I describe myself as.
Preface your thoughtful moments with, if I think about it.
Use validating phrases like, what I really enjoy about that is, it shows engagement.
And the more you actually use these phrases, practice that mirroring of energy.
The more automatic it all becomes. That's how you build real fluency for these high-stakes moments. It takes practice, but it works.
Okay, so we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. A provocative question, perhaps.
If fluency really is so much about connecting through rhythm, tone, and that kind of emotional mirroring, where else in your life, beyond interviews, where else could using mirroring or maybe employing a confidence anchor instantly boost your communication, your influence?
Something to think about. Go try it out.
Definitely.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive. welcome back to the deep dive. So you, our listener, you're already operating at a pretty high level. You've probably got the handshake down, the small talk, that confident body language. But let's be real.
Yeah.
The part that gets everyone's heart pounding, especially in interviews or high-stakes chats, is that sudden, tricky question you didn't see coming.
That really is the moment of truth, isn't it? Those questions, they aren't just about checking your skills on paper. They're really designed to probe how you think, your maturity level, and frankly, how self-aware you are under pressure.
Especially if English isn't your first language.
Exactly. A question like, so what's your biggest weakness? Or tell me about a time you failed can just, well, it can make even the most prepared person freeze up completely.
Okay, so that's what we're tackling today. We're aiming to cut through that fear.
Good.
Our mission, digging into the material we reviewed, is pretty simple. Give you a shortcut.
A playbook.
Yes. The exact structures, the kind of professional but still conversational English, and those smart phrases, idioms, that make you sound not just fluent, but actually confident, prepared.
We're basically unpacking the why behind each tricky question.
Turning those potential traps
Into opportunities, really. Chances to show growth and that you're ready for whatever's next.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the self-awareness challenge. Question 1, the absolute classic nobody really looks forward to. What's your biggest weakness?
Yeah.
It's so tough because, well, you feel like you have to confess something negative, but you definitely don't want to sink your own ship, right?
That's the tightrope walk. But understanding the interviewer's real goal helps massively. They're not actually trying to collect a list of your flaws.
So what are they doing?
They're checking two main things. First, self-awareness, like can you even identify an area where you can improve? And second, your mindset. Are you proactive? Do you just accept the weakness, or are you actively doing something about it? It's that proof of ongoing improvement they're after.
Okay, so if I just say, I'm not very organized, and leave it there.
That's a fail.
Right.
Yeah, you've basically just confirmed a problem and offered no solution. It sounds like an unmanaged issue. And that's why the sources we looked at all point to a clear 3-step structure.
Let's break that down. This structure sounds like the key.
It really is. And it needs to be clear, pretty concise. Step 1, mention a minor weakness. Something real, but not, critical to the core functions of the job.
So if it's a finance job, don't say you hate spreadsheets.
Please don't. Yeah, pick something manageable. Step 2, explain how you are actively, right now, working on it, improving it. This is the most important part. Show the action.
Okay.
And 3, got to end on a positive note. Turn it into a mini story about growth or what you've learned. It has to pivot.
This is where the right phrasing, that fluent language, makes such a difference. We pulled out 2 really good examples you could adapt. First one about presentation nerves. Well, I used to get quite nervous speaking in front of groups, but I've been actively working on it by volunteering to lead team meetings and giving presentations whenever I can. Actually, now I find I quite enjoy sharing my ideas.
See, what makes that strong is the specific action. Volunteering to lead team meetings. It anchors the weakness in something tangible, something professional. You sound honest, but also really proactive.
Confident, even.
Yeah.
And the second one, this is popular with high achievers, the perfectionism angle. I sometimes tend to focus a bit too much on the details because I really want everything to be perfect. But I've learned to better balance quality with deadlines by setting clearer priorities up front and, frankly, getting better at delegating.
Ooh, I like that phrase, balancing quality with deadlines. That signals real managerial thinking. You acknowledge the potential downside of perfectionism, but show you have a system to manage it. The biggest mistake here, thinking a generic answer works. It needs to feel true to you, but the structure keeps it positive and confident.
Absolutely. Honesty plus strategy. Okay, moving on. Let's talk accountability. Question 2. Tell me about a time you failed. This one feels like a real test of maturity.
It is. They want to see if you point fingers or if you actually take ownership and, crucially, learn something useful from it.
And this is a great place where using natural, fluent phrasing can really boost your professional English, right?
Definitely. Native speakers often use certain idioms when talking about mistakes that signal responsibility without sounding overly dramatic. A fantastic one here is drop the ball.
Simple, clear, I like it.
Yeah, it just means you made a mistake, you failed to deliver on something important you were meant to handle. So a strong way to use it might be,
Well, earlier in my career, I definitely took on too many projects at once. And, Ended up dropping the ball on meeting a key deadline because I wasn't communicating my workload effectively.
Okay, but that can't be where you stop talking.
No way.
You need that recovery line, right? Straight away, with that confident, looking forward tone. You have to pivot from the failure itself to the lesson. Exactly right. No excuses, no dwelling on it. The answer structure is accountability first, then systemic change. So you finish with something like, but honestly, I learned a vital lesson from that about managing expectations and the importance of proactive communication, and it's never happened since. See? Focus shifts from the error to the competence gained because of it.
That's the crucial difference. They don't actually care much about the past failure. They care about the recovery and the improved process now. Okay, smooth transition now to question 3, ambition and fit. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
The old crystal ball question. This is a big check for the interviewer. They want reassurance that you see a future for yourself growing with their company, or at least on a path that aligns with their industry.
So definitely don't say, I don't know.
Absolutely not. Or even worse, imply this job is just a quick stop on the way to something totally different. That's a red flag.
Okay, so we need to show some direction and, importantly, how that direction fits with where the company might be going. What's the best way to structure that?
Avoid being vague. You need to paint a picture of a clear trajectory that involves more responsibility and contributing to the team's success. A solid structure is something like, well, in 5 years, I see myself having taken on more leadership responsibilities within the team, perhaps mentoring junior members, and definitely contributing to significant projects that help the company achieve its growth targets.
That hits all the right notes: growth, leadership, and company benefit.
Nice. And to add a bit of conversational sparkle, a bit of flair, there's a great idiom for career progression, our sources mentioned: climbing the ladder.
It's a classic because it's so universally understood. Just means advancing in your career, moving up.
So after you give that structured answer, you could add something like, my goal is definitely to keep climbing the ladder right here at company name while making sure I'm constantly learning new things and adding real value every step of the way.
Yeah.
It sounds ambitious, yes, but also grounded and loyal.
That combination of clarity and commitment is exactly what they're looking for. All right, moving to the big pitch. Question 4, why should we hire you? This is your prime opportunity, but it's easy to sound, well, arrogant or just like you're reading a script. How do we sell ourselves confidently, but also naturally?
The key here is a dual focus. You absolutely have to mention your technical skills, but you also need to highlight your soft skills, especially teamwork and commitment. It's about the combined package.
So not just, I'm good at X.
No. A much stronger, more fluent approach is something like, well, I believe you should hire me because I bring not only proven technical expertise in, say, skill A and skill B, but just as importantly, I bring strong teamwork abilities and a really collaborative mindset. I'm not just focused on getting my tasks done. I genuinely care about how the whole team succeeds and hits our collective goals.
I like how that shifts it from me to us. Makes you sound like a valuable team member, not just a solo act. And to really emphasize that commitment, that work ethic, there's another idiom that kept popping up.
Let me guess. Go the extra mile.
That's the one. Meaning, obviously, doing more than what's just expected.
Right.
So you could use it like this. I consistently go the extra mile to ensure my work isn't just done, but done thoroughly and often exceeds the team's expectations. I believe that commitment to quality and effort is something that sets me apart. It frames it around performance, which sounds confident, not boastful.
Okay, now for the one everyone dreads a little bit. Question 5. Salary expectations. This is where people often panic. They're scared of asking too little or asking too much and knocking themselves out of the running right away.
Yeah, it's a tricky moment. We know we shouldn't just blurt out the highest number we can imagine. So what's the polite, flexible, professional way to, well, maybe delay that conversation a bit?
The best Fluent strategy is definitely deferral, but framing it positively. You want to delay the specific number talk until you fully grasp the role, which keeps your options open and gives you more leverage later.
How do you phrase that?
You signal that your priority is the fit and the opportunity, not just the money. Try something like, I'm certainly open to discussing compensation once I have a clearer understanding of the complete scope of the role, the day-to-day responsibilities, and the overall benefits package. My main focus right now is on finding the right opportunity where I can really contribute and grow my career.
That sounds really professional. Using terms like scope, responsibilities, benefits package, it shows, the drill.
Yeah.
But what if they push? What if they say, no, really, we need a number now?
Okay, if they insist, you pivot to the range strategy. You must have done your homework beforehand on typical salaries for that role, in that industry, in that location. Then you provide a bracket.
So how would that sound?
Keep it calm, keep it conversational. Okay, well, based on my current understanding of the role, my experience level, and the research I've done on industry standards for similar positions in this market, I believe a compensation package in the range of your researched low end to your researched high end would be fair and appropriate. The key is the calm tone. It's part of a negotiation, not a demand.
Makes sense. Do your homework, have a range ready just in case. Okay, let's shift gears just a bit. We've dropped in a few idioms naturally, but let's talk more broadly about sprinkling these into your everyday professional English. Like seasoning to make it sound less like a textbook and more alive, more natural.
Oh, absolutely. Idioms are really the lifeblood of sounding fluent conversationally. They bridge the gap between just knowing the words and actually sounding natural. Here are 5 really essential ones that work in loads of professional contexts, like meetings or interviews. They just instantly make your English sound more native.
Okay, number 1. Hit the ground running.
Means starting something, usually a new job or project, and being effective and productive immediately without delay. You might say, I'm a quick learner and very organized, so I'm confident I can hit the ground running from day one.
Good one. Number 2, think outside the box.
A classic. Means being creative, finding unconventional solutions instead of just sticking to the usual methods. Usage. When we face unexpected challenges, I always encourage my team to think outside the box to find innovative solutions.
Love it. 3, on the same page.
This just means ensuring everyone understands something the same way or agrees on a plan. Super important for teamwork. Usage. Before we kick off the project, let's have a quick meeting to make sure we're all on the same page about the goals and deliverables.
Essential. 4, bring to the table.
This refers to the skills, experience, or qualities you offer or contribute to a team or situation. Usage. Beyond my technical skills and data analysis, I also bring strong communication and presentation skills to the table. And number 5, learn the ropes. This simply means learning the basics of how something works, especially a new job or system. Usage. I understand there will be specific processes here, and I'm really eager to learn the ropes quickly and become a contributing member of the team.
Those are great. And if you can start weaving those into your conversations naturally, it really does elevate your fluency level.
Okay.
Quick fire round.
Yeah.
Those really unexpected questions. The ones designed purely to see how you think on your feet. Like, if you were an animal, what would you be? Or how do you handle stress?
Right, the curveballs. These test your thinking fluency, your ability to create a positive narrative quickly. You can't really prep a full answer, but you can have a few positive symbolic associations ready.
So for the animal one, pick an animal known for a good professional trait, like focus or observation.
Exactly. Don't just pick your favorite animal. Link it professionally, for instance. That's an interesting one. I'd probably say I'm like an owl. They're known for being observant, calm, especially under pressure, and always learning, which I think is key in adapting to new challenges. It gives a potentially silly question some professional depth.
Nice pivot. And for handling stress, we can use one last great idiom here, right? Something that shows perspective.
Yes. When asked about stress, you want to show you prioritize effectively and don't get easily overwhelmed by minor things. A great response incorporates this idiom. When I feel under pressure, my first step is always to take a deep breath, refocus on the most critical priorities, and remind myself not to sweat the small stuff.
And just for clarity, not to sweat the small stuff means not worrying excessively about minor issues or problems. Shows excellent perspective, especially under pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, we're nearly out of time. Let's land this with one absolutely crucial piece of final advice. It comes right at the end of the interview.
Yes. When they finally lean back and ask, so do you have any questions for us? Whatever you do, never, ever just say no.
Why is that so bad?
It just signals a complete lack of engagement, curiosity, or even serious interest in the opportunity. It's a missed chance.
You must ask something. Smart questions, right? Questions that show you're genuinely interested, confident, and thinking about the role seriously.
Yes. Questions that show you're thinking beyond just getting an offer. Ask things like, could you tell me a bit more about the team I'd be working most closely with? Or, what do you see as the key performance indicators for success in this role during the first 6, maybe 12 months?
Or even, what are some of the biggest challenges the team is facing right now that the person in this role could help address? That shows you want to contribute.
Precisely. And always, always ask about the process itself. What are the next steps in your hiring process? And what's the general timeline you're working towards? It shows you're organized and eager to move forward.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, if we connect this back to the bigger picture for our listeners.
The core takeaway really is this. True fluency, especially in a professional context, isn't just about having perfect grammar or using fancy words. It's about effectively communicating your value, your thinking, your professionalism, and doing it with clarity, calmness, and confidence.
So we're not just prepping you for that one interview.
No, not at all. We're giving you the language tools for sustained professional success.
Oh, okay.
Think about it. The clear, confident English you practice for these interview situations. Using these structures, these fluent idioms, that's the exact same fluency you'll need in important meetings, in high-stakes emails, in presentations to leadership once you actually have the job.
So practice now pays off later.
Absolutely. Practice makes these communication patterns feel natural, almost automatic. So here's a challenge for you listening. Pick just one idiom we talked about today, or maybe one question structure, like the weakness answer. Rehearse it. Say it out loud until it feels completely comfortable, completely yours. That's how you build real, usable fluency.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So you, our listener, you've already put in a lot of the groundwork. You know how to handle those tough interview questions. You've practiced idioms. You can definitely get your points across in English.
Right. But here's the thing we found really striking in the research this week. We see really capable candidates, smart people making these, 7 specific mistakes pretty consistently. They've got the language down, but the delivery, it just falls flat sometimes.
That's the real paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
An interview isn't purely a language exam. It's more about showing you're composed, you're confident, and you can connect.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to pinpoint those 7 common errors that can really sink an otherwise great interview performance and, crucially, show you how to avoid them.
Yeah, we've sort of grouped these into, let's say, 3 main areas. Preparation pitfalls, delivery traps, and interaction missteps. If you can sidestep these 7, well, your chances of landing that job go way up.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting right at the beginning, the prep stage. The first mistake, and maybe the biggest one, sounding too scripted. That whole academic perfection idea.
Oh, definitely. It's a massive psychological trap, you know? Learners feel safer if they've memorized everything, every single word. But honestly, when you deliver that kind of perfect script, you lose all the natural rhythm, the intonation.
You feel like you're reading a statement.
Exactly. Not having a conversation. It just signals, inflexibility.
I think the real issue is confusing preparation with pure memorization. The sources had a really good example of this. Like, listen to this candidate who clearly memorized their entry. My name is Ahmed. I am a hardworking person. I am confident and punctual. I can work under pressure.
Grammatically, fine. But it's got no personality, right? No flexibility. Now, contrast that with someone focusing on ideas, using flexible phrases, not rigid sentences. I'd say I'm pretty organized and motivated. I really enjoy learning new things, especially when I can see results and really contribute to what the team's trying to achieve.
Yeah, that second one sounds like a real person inviting you into a conversation.
Yeah.
So the takeaway isn't don't prepare. It's prepare the ideas, the key points, maybe some phrases.
Exactly. But let the actual words come out naturally during the interview.
Think bullet points, not dense paragraphs.
Yes. Precisely.
Okay, that brings us kind of neatly to the next preparation issue. And this one often comes from a good place, wanting to impress. Let's jump to mistake number 4. Trying too hard to sound smart by using complex words, maybe correctly. The synergistic snare, as we called it.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. You see candidates who've maybe studied lists of power verbs or corporate buzzwords to synergize, facilitate, proactive, leverage.
And they feel they have to drop them in to show off their English level.
But if you misuse them, or even if they just sound clunky in the sentence, it totally backfires. It immediately makes you sound, a bit less authentic, like you're trying too hard.
Prioritizing fancy words over actual clear meaning.
Exactly that. Your vocabulary should help clarify your meaning, not muddy the waters. If you're even slightly unsure about how a word fits, grammatically or contextually, just skip it. Simple, clear, accurate English is always, always better than a complicated mess-up. Clarity beats complexity every time.
The source material had this brilliant comparison, like a simple, clear sentence. I helped my team finish the project early, by simplifying the reporting process. Crystal clear.
Versus the jargon-heavy version. I facilitated the project implementation in a synergistic manner, which proactively leveraged our core competencies.
Yeah, that second one makes my brain hurt. You have to stop and decode the jargon and you lose track of the actual achievement. Powerful simplicity. That's the goal.
Okay, so moving on from prep pitfalls, let's talk about delivery traps. These are often about nervousness creeping in and undermining even well-prepared answers.
Right. Mistake number 2, speaking too fast. Or sometimes the opposite, speaking way too slow. There's this common idea, especially for learners, that fluent means fast, so people rush.
Yeah, that's just fundamentally not true. When you actually look at how native speakers talk effectively, they pause quite a bit. Speaking too fast makes you sound nervous, maybe unclear, too slow, and you might sound hesitant, like you're struggling for words.
So the trick is,
speak clearly, not quickly. That's the mantra.
and there's a really practical physical tip here, isn't there? Breathing.
Absolutely. You have to breathe. Taking a natural pause after you finish a thought or a sentence, it does 2 things. It gives your brain a second to catch up, which helps you. And, crucially, it gives the interviewer a moment to actually take in what you just said.
That silence isn't awkwardness, it's confidence.
Precisely. It signals you're comfortable. If you sound rushed, it can unintentionally signal you want the interview to be over or you're just uncomfortable with pauses.
So what can people do?
A great exercise. Record yourself answering a standard question like, tell me about yourself. Then listen back, honestly. Do you sound frantic, rushed, or do you sound calm, collected, thoughtful? Often the difference is just adding a few deliberate pauses and remembering to breathe.
And fixing your pace can actually help with the next delivery trap too, right? Mistake number 3, overusing filler words. You know, the classic, that pops out when your brain's trying to catch up with your mouth.
Yeah, this one's subtle because, let's be honest, native speakers use fillers too, but learners sometimes overuse them when they're juggling sentence structure and vocabulary in real time. Too many fillers and your fluency, your confidence, it just seems to drop. It sounds like you're constantly searching.
But okay, if I consciously try not to say, I worry I'll just freeze up completely. How do you find that balance, thinking time, without the filler word?
That's a really good point. It taps into that fear of silence, doesn't it? The key is to replace the accidental, slightly awkward with something intentional and, well, professional. You need phrases that buy you thinking time but sound confident.
So instead of a nervous noise, use a thoughtful phrase, like a bridge.
Exactly. Instead of, try just a silent pause for a second that signals thought. Or use a professional bridging phrase. Let me think about that for a moment. Or, that's a great question, I'd say. Or maybe, well, based on my experience, these signal you're considering the question seriously, not that you're lost.
That's a really powerful switch in mindset, turning a potential weakness into a moment of reflection.
Okay, moving into our last group of mistakes. These are about interaction and engagement. People often focus so much on what they're saying, they forget how they're connecting.
Mistake number 5, ignoring your tone and body language. Like, people say 70% of communication is nonverbal. So even if my English is flawless, if I'm sitting there rigid as a board or staring at the ceiling,
My message isn't landing right. What's fascinating here is that interviewers process those nonverbal cues almost instantly. Your posture, whether you smile naturally, your eye contact, your tone that all screams confidence or lack of it, before your brilliant answer even registers fully.
your body speaks English too.
It really does. And if it's shouting nervous or uninterested, that's often what the interviewer remembers most.
So practically, how do we work on that? Especially with remote interviews being so common.
Well, again, recording yourself is invaluable. Maybe just a 5-minute video clip answering a couple of questions. Then watch it back critically. Is your smile genuine or forced? Is your eye contact steady, not darting around, but also not an unnerving stare? Do you look engaged and confident? Practice using your face and body to support your words.
That's great advice. Okay, but staying in the flow of the conversation. Mistake number 6, not listening carefully enough.
Ah, yes, a classic. Candidates get so focused on rehearsing their own answers, their greatest hits, that they don't actually tune into the specific question being asked.
Which leads to those answers that are fine, but slightly off topic. Like the interviewer asks about handling conflict under pressure, and the candidate talks about general teamwork skills. They missed the key part, conflict.
Active listening is absolutely crucial here. You have to show you're engaged with their needs, their question. The fix is surprisingly simple, though.
Which is?
Just briefly repeat or paraphrase the core of the question back before you answer. It confirms you've understood.
So something like, okay, so you're asking specifically about managing conflict when deadlines were tight. Right, let me think of a good example.
Exactly that. That tiny confirmation does so much. It buys you a second to think, make sure you're answering the right question, and shows the interviewer you're really paying attention. It's respectful.
Okay, finally, mistake number 7, ending the interview weakly. You could nail everything else, give amazing answers for 20 minutes, and then just fizzle out at the end.
Yeah, that weak close can really undermine the whole impression. The ending is your last chance to reinforce your professionalism and enthusiasm. Too many candidates just mumble, okay, thanks, bye, or sort of wait awkwardly. You want to leave a strong, positive final impression.
This is where you circle back to your interest and thank them properly. The examples from the sources were good here. Like, it was genuinely great speaking with you today. I really enjoyed learning more about the next steps and the team.
Or even, thank you so much for your time. I'm actually even more excited now about the possibility of joining your team.
Something confident and positive.
Exactly. It makes a huge difference. It shows you're professional right through to the very end. You're taking every part of the interaction seriously.
Okay, so stepping back a bit, what does all this mean for you, the listener, beyond just this one interview? How do these fixes help more broadly?
Well, these habits, they aren't just for interviews. They carry over into everything. Team meetings, client calls, presentations, even professional emails sometimes. If you practice pausing confidently, if you choose clear words over complicated ones, if you really listen actively, you're not just getting better at interviews.
You're becoming a better communicator overall.
Precisely. Real fluency isn't just about knowing words. It's about speaking naturally, connecting effectively with whoever you're talking to, interviewer, colleague, client, boss.
Absolutely. So the core lesson really is that interview success hinges on that professional delivery, that genuine engagement, not just how many fancy words you know.
And we want to leave you with something practical, a quick practice framework. We really encourage you, maybe even today, to run a short practice session focusing on these points, the pauses, the listening, the simple language, using these 4 common questions.
Okay, question 1. Tell me about yourself. Practice that short, confident intro, focusing on ideas, not memorized lines. Really avoid the scripting.
Question 2. What's your biggest strength? Try using one relevant idiom, maybe go the extra mile or hit the ground running, but make sure it fits naturally into a clear sentence. Don't force it.
Question 3. Why should we hire you? Pick 2 key skills and talk about them clearly, paying attention to your pace. Not too fast, not too slow.
And question 4. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Outline a realistic goal, and then make sure you practice delivering a strong, enthusiastic closing statement right after.
And the key is, record yourself, video or just audio. Then listen back. Are you rushing? Too many ums. Does your body language match your words if you did video? Be honest with yourself.
Which, raises a final thought, maybe a provocative question for you to consider. Why do we focus so much on these delivery and interaction details? It's because honing your clarity, your confident pauses, your genuine connection that builds practical communication skill far faster than just memorizing more vocabulary lists. Remember, those little stumbles, those mistakes, they're just practice opportunities in disguise. Don't fear the pauses. Learn to use them. Polish that real-time thinking and connection. That's how you truly shine.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We spend so much time honing the technical stuff, vocab lists, grammar rules, sentence structure. But you, our listener, you know the reality. Knowing the words, that's just not the same as delivering them with real confidence, especially under pressure.
That's absolutely right. That anxiety, that little flutter before a big meeting, or worse, an interview, it can just wipe out years of hard work.
Exactly.
So our focus today, this deep dive, isn't about cramming more English in. It's about taking the English you already have and, making it work for you, sharpening it.
Right.
Our sources really boil this down to what they're calling the final confidence formula. It's a specific way to shift your delivery from, nervous and hesitant to smooth and natural.
Okay, so the mission here is extracting those key insights, mindset, tone, delivery, that separates someone who just knows English from someone who sounds truly fluent and impactful, making sure your ideas actually land.
Precisely. It's about owning the room, owning the conversation. And to give us a handle on this, the sources lay out a core framework, Think of it as your go-to structure, the 3C confidence formula.
The 3C formula. Okay, let's unpack that straight away. A three-part structure to manage nerves, enhance delivery. What are the C's?
They are calm, clear, and connected, and each one tackles a different aspect of how you come across professionally.
Okay, let's start with calm. Now, most people hear calm and think, yeah, deep breaths. But for professional speaking, why is physical calmness so important? It sounds basic.
Well, it sounds basic, but it's technically crucial. It's way beyond just feeling less anxious. See, when you're tense, physically tense, your breathing gets shallow, like right up in your chest.
Right.
And that directly messes with your voice. Shallow breath means less air, which means you might rush your words, your voice might sound tight, maybe a bit flat, you sound less assertive, maybe even robotic. So the advice, slow your breathing, relax your shoulders. It's actually about creating the vocal cadence, the rhythm, that signals control and authority. It literally gives your brain the space it needs to think clearly in English, which is, let's face it, demanding.
That's a great point. Physical control enables vocal authority.
Right.
Okay, moving to the second C, clear. This is interesting because I think a lot of professionals fall into the trap of trying to sound smart by using really complex words.
Oh, definitely. It's a total performance trap. Real professional fluency isn't about showing off your vocabulary. It's simply about being understood. Clarity.
So short sentences, clear pronunciation.
Exactly. Short, purposeful sentences, making sure each word is distinct. And there's a specific technique our sources highlight here, mastering signposting.
Signposting, like you'd use in a formal presentation. How does that work in, say, a meeting or an interview? Seems a bit formal.
It might sound formal, but it's a hallmark of executive presence, even in conversation. Instead of just letting your thoughts spill out, you guide the listener. You use little phrases like, okay, firstly, I want to touch on the budget implications, or, so my main point here is this. Or perhaps my view on this breaks down into two parts.
Okay.
It structures your thought process for the listener. They can follow you easily, even if the idea is complex. It makes you sound organized, clear-headed, hugely improves clarity.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the final C is connected. This feels like it moves beyond just how you speak to the interaction itself.
Exactly. Connection is the magic ingredient, really. It's what makes people remember you, trust you. It's about those nonverbals, making good eye contact, not staring, but connecting, matching your tone to the situation, and crucially, really listening.
Not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Precisely. A connected speaker actually builds on what the other person said. They show they've heard and processed it. That active engagement, that's what leaves the impression of real competence and confidence.
Okay, so we've got the framework. Calm, clear, connected. But knowing the framework is one thing. Actually doing it under pressure, say, 5 minutes before a big call, how do you get into that state?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? You can't just flip a switch. Preparation has to start before the pressure hits. You know, think about top performers, CEOs, speakers. They all have pre-performance routines. It's not superstition.
It's managing the cognitive load, you mean?
Exactly that. It's about warming up the specific mental muscles you need.
So what does a good warm-up look like? What did the sources suggest for, say, a quick 10-minute English warm-up?
The main goal is to activate your English brain.
Right.
To kind of push the native language processing into the background, reduce that internal translation delay. It needs to be focused.
Okay.
So minutes 1 and 2, listen to something short in English, a news brief, a relevant podcast clip. Get your ear tuned to the rhythm and pace. Minutes 3 and 4, say one strong positive phrase out loud. Something related to your goal, like, I'm prepared to make a significant contribution. Say it with conviction.
Setting the mental tone. What's next?
Minutes 5 and 6 are about getting physically and mentally ready. Deep breathing, really focus on that calm, diaphragmatic breath we talked about. And visualize. See yourself handling the conversation successfully, confidently, not just getting through it, but actually doing well.
Okay.
Then, minutes 7 through 10, do a quick practice run, answer one likely question out loud, maybe in front of a mirror, or just record it on your phone.
So the idea is when the actual meeting or interview starts, your brain isn't starting from cold. It's already been running the English program for 10 minutes. You bypass some of that slow translation.
Precisely. You've built up a bit of momentum, and that momentum is vital when you tackle one of the toughest parts, thinking fast on your feet in English.
Ah, yes, that leap from thinking about the language to just using it. Thinking fast in the second language.
Yeah.
It feels like a superpower sometimes.
It can feel that way, but it's actually a trainable skill. The secret is shifting how you prepare. Stop trying to memorize perfect answers word for word. Instead, focus on building, let's call it conceptual fluency, and developing your conversational reflexes.
Okay.
This brings us to a really practical technique from the sources: question flipping.
Question flipping. Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's use that classic interview question. Why should we hire you? How would you flip that?
Right. You take that core question and you deliberately brainstorm different ways it could be asked, like, what makes you stand out from other candidates? Or how would you describe the value you bring to a project? Maybe what's your single biggest strength relevant to this role? Or even sell me on why you're the best fit. You twist it 5, 6, 7 different ways.
And doing that, I guess you start to see they're all basically asking the same thing, aren't they?
Exactly. That's the light bulb moment. You realize maybe 90% of interview questions are just variations on a few core themes, like what value do you offer, or can you handle challenges? So suddenly, you're not preparing 10 different scripts. You're preparing 1 or 2 core ideas, your value, your problem-solving approach really deeply, and then practicing how to adapt that core message to slightly different questions.
That feels much more robust than memorizing. Adapting a core idea seems like it would hold up better under pressure. But thinking fast also needs smooth delivery. You mentioned pausing earlier.
Yes, pausing. It's so often overlooked or even feared. People think a pause means they've forgotten something or they're uncertain.
Yeah, you worry it sounds like hesitation.
But used strategically, it's the opposite. A well-placed pause signals control. It shows you're thinking, not just reacting. It gives your words weight. It demonstrates maturity.
Okay, but how do we make sure it sounds like a strategic pause and not just awkward silence or hesitation?
Good question. Hesitation often comes with filler words and tends to happen awkwardly mid-sentence, breaking the flow. A strategic pause usually happens at a natural grammatical break. After an introductory phrase, maybe before delivering a key point or before a conclusion. Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of rushing through, you might say, based on my analysis, pause, I believe the best course of action is, or, the key benefit here is, pause, a significant reduction in costs. That small silence, it adds emphasis.
And it gives you a split second to breathe, right? Tying back to the calm C. Keeps the delivery smooth.
Exactly. It's a tool, a leadership communication tool, really. And all this, the pauses, the clarity, the calmness, it helps address the root cause of so much anxiety, the fear of being judged.
Ah, yes, the constant worry. My grammar isn't perfect. What if I make a mistake?
And that worry, it's often based on a false assumption. Here's a really crucial piece of insight from the sources. In professional settings, people, interviewers, colleagues, clients, they don't prioritize perfect grammar like a language teacher might.
What do they prioritize?
They prioritize effective communication. Can you get your point across clearly? Do you structure your thoughts logically? Can you connect with them? Do you sound credible and professional? That's what matters. So the big mindset shift is moving away from chasing this impossible ideal of perfect native speaker English towards delivering professional, effective English.
Absolutely. It requires a conscious change in your internal attitude. You need to stop that constant self-monitoring, that inner critic correcting every little slip-up. That just drains mental energy you need for the actual conversation.
So instead of thinking, oh no, I hope I don't make mistakes,
you shift to thinking, I hope they really understand the value of my idea. Or I need to make sure my recommendation is clear and persuasive. The focus moves from correction to connection and impact. That's what fluent professionals do.
That's powerful. Okay, so once you've got that mindset and you're using the 3 C's, how do these goals translate beyond just interviews into everyday work-life meetings, emails, team updates?
They transfer directly. Mastering the 3 C's and that professional mindset basically upgrades your entire communication toolkit. Take meetings, for instance. You need to contribute effectively, maybe even politely interrupt sometimes.
Yeah, just blurting out, I disagree, doesn't usually go over well. What are some good professional ways to jump in or offer a different view?
Structure is key. You could use phrases like, if I could just add a thought here, or may I offer a different perspective on that? If you disagree, soften it. That's a valid point, and I wonder if we could also consider X, or I see where you're coming from, but perhaps looking at it this way. Using conditional language like could or perhaps shows respect while still being clear and assertive.
Those structures are gold. They keep it clear and connected. What about emails? How do you maintain that professional yet confident tone in writing?
Similar principles apply. Be clear and concise. Use signposting even in emails, following up on our conversation, or to confirm the next steps. Start strong and clearly. Keep it professional, but not robotic. Simple closings like thanks or best regards work well. Avoid overly weak or passive language.
Right. And for something like a presentation opening, you need to grab attention right away.
Definitely. No rambling intros. Be direct, confident. Something like, good morning. Today I want to share 3 key strategies for improving our client retention. Get straight to the value. The key is reusing these strong, clear structures until they feel completely natural. That's how interview skills become everyday business fluency.
So this confidence, this fluency,
Sure.
It's not something you achieve once and then you're done. It needs maintaining, right? What's the formula for keeping it strong?
Absolutely. It's a continuous process. The sources frame it as a cycle. Prepare, practice.
Personalize.
Okay, break that down. Prepare is learning the key questions, the useful phrases we've discussed.
Right. Doing the intellectual groundwork. Then practice means actually saying them out loud. You have to physically practice speaking, engage the muscles, hear your own voice.
And then personalize. Why is that last step so critical for real fluency?
Because personalization is what makes it yours. When you connect the answers and the language to your own real experiences, your own stories, your own insights, it stops feeling like you're reciting a script someone else wrote. Becomes authentic.
Exactly. It flows naturally because it is natural. It's you expressing your genuine professional self. That's where true confidence comes from. When the English stops feeling like a performance and just feels like you communicating effectively.
Okay, for listeners who want a concrete daily action, the sources provided a very specific routine, the 5-minute daily interview fluency routine. Can we quickly walk through those 5 minutes?
Yes, it's designed for consistency. Minute 1. Read a short, professionally relevant English paragraph out loud, maybe from an industry article or report. Focus on clear pronunciation and a steady pace.
Okay, warms up the voice and mind. Minute 2.
Record yourself answering one common interview or meeting question. Pick one yourself. Just speak for 60 seconds. Don't overthink it.
Minute 3. Listen back immediately. What are you listening for?
Specifically for pronunciation glitches, awkward pauses, or maybe where your clarity dipped, just notice 1 or 2 things. Quick self-assessment.
Got it. Minute 4.
Lexical upgrade. Look back at what you said, or just think about it. Find 1 or 2 weak or generic words you use, like good, bad, nice things, and replace them with stronger, more precise professional words. Like effective, detrimental, valuable, strategies, challenges.
Instantly sharpens the language. And the last minute, minute 5.
Visualization. Close your eyes and actively picture yourself in that meeting or interview, successfully using the 3 C's, speaking calmly, clearly, connecting with the other person. See yourself succeeding.
5 minutes. Seems manageable, but done consistently.
The sources strongly suggest that consistent practice, even just 5 minutes, makes a tangible difference in your control, your confidence, your fluency within weeks. It compounds.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered a lot, the 3C formula. Calm, clear, connected. Techniques like question flipping for thinking faster. The crucial mindset shift from perfect to professional.
And how these skills apply broadly in business. Controlling your tone, handling tough questions naturally, sounding assertive yet respectful.
The big takeaway for everyone listening seems to be, you likely already have the English knowledge you need. The focus now is on the delivery, sounding real, sounding controlled, sounding ready to contribute value. It's not about being a walking dictionary.
Exactly. It's about sounding like a confident, competent professional who happens to be speaking English.
So leave us with one final thought on this.
Okay, here's something to consider. Maybe the most advanced fluency technique isn't about adding more words. Maybe it's about mastering silence, that strategic pause we talked about. Learn to use it deliberately. Use it to gather your thoughts, to add weight to your words, to show you're in control. If you can command the silence, you can command the conversation. Fluent English doesn't just come from the words. It comes from the confident, composed person you train yourself to be while speaking them.
If today's session gave you confidence and clarity for your next interview, don't stop here. Take the next step. Practice your answers out loud, use these English phrases daily, and train your mind to stay calm and professional every time you speak. And if you're serious about transforming your English, make sure you follow English Speak Pulse for more fluency lessons, interview simulations, and real-life English practice episodes. Every day, we help you sound confident, not just in interviews, but in meetings, emails, and everyday conversations. So, keep practicing, keep improving, and remember, fluency isn't about sounding perfect, it's about sounding powerful. Your best English starts now.